5 of their players are wildly flexible, can throw out so many different drafts. Just yesterday, they pulled out Callista Tarek, they pulled out Varus twice. We saw 3 different champions and Yasuo for Young in the mid lane. He loves to pull that one out, so I'm thrilled to see what 100 Thieves are going to come up with today.
Yeah, and I love Young as a player. I've seen him from his time back on TBA before they were picked up by the 100 Thieves organization. Young was a massive AD mid lane player, right? Used Irelia and Yasuo quite a lot to sort of make a bit of a name for himself, and I love to see that he's staying true to that still in a sort of roundabout way. But we're just waiting to make sure that we've got all the players ready to go before we start up this draft. We do believe it's going to be starting somewhat soon. We're seeing some sort of ours in the premonition that we're going to get it going somewhat soon. But Maryville as well, coming up off of seemingly not just a bit of a disappointing cup run, but then obviously, as you mentioned, having a really good Risen run, being able to make it and win their LAN in at St. Louis. And off the back of as well, a little bit of a roster change coming through with Azog down in the bot lane. This is a potentially refreshed Maryville with a new AD carry, right?
Yeah, very much has been. I think Azog and the sort of installation permanently of Spyrax, right? Wolfie was in and out of the roster towards the end of the CLOL season, but Spyrax now is the full-time starting mid laner. So with the roster solidified with that new AD carry, they've been looking great. Azog has offered them a lot of flexibility. He can play mages in the bot lane. He can play normal AD carries. He farms extremely well, and it allows them to be more aggressive in some of their top lane or top side plays with Spyrax and the Odd Orange. And you can actually see the respect band on the Ziggs there coming in 400X who are on the red side to start this one out. That is exactly the person they are taking that champion away from.
Yeah, and with all of that, they've gotten the double flex pick sort of taken off the board. Gwen, a champion that can be played in multiple roles along that top side. Ziggs as well, a champion that can be flexed between bot and mid lane. But we're already racing through the draft here. We've got ourselves Xin Zhao now, Viego and Thresh all locked on up. A lot of early on dive potential coming through just with the Xin Zhao pick for Maryville. And then after that, they got Viego and Thresh for the 100 Thieves squad. So the fact that they've got themselves a nice little bit of peel as well sort of suggests that they may be looking toward a Varus, toward an Aphelios, one of those more immobile, hyper carry style champions, to potentially gateway them into the late game.
Yeah, I actually really hope to see the Aphelios here, dude. I love that champion. It's incredible in the hands of a quality AD carry, and Instinct is certainly a quality AD carry. We saw him absolutely effective on 2 Varus games yesterday. He can play the Callista, and Callista and Aphelios are 2 of the most important carries in the meta, so I'd be thrilled to see him busted out in this 3rd pick, and he does see the Ezreal on the other end. He could, okay, the Callista's banned away, so unfortunately you can't opt for that one. That would be a great lane matchup into the Ezreal. See what 100X are going to go for. One thing that I'm a little intrigued, okay, yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Okay,
there it is.
dude. I'm excited for this one. I will say traditionally, Ezreal's a good answer into Aphelios, at least in terms of makes it a little hard for Aphelios to do what he wants. The range of the Ezreal, you can't really interact with him as much as you would like when you have the chakrams. But you can still dish out all the damage that we know Aphelios can do. It's 200 years for a reason, and thrilled to see Instinct pull this one out next to Busio's Thresh.
This is exactly the type of champion that you want to be pairing with that Thresh as well. The Dark Passage allowing for a lot of safety here. And as well, when you lock in the Ezreal on the other side here for Maryville, 100 Thieves are well aware that Ezreal is more than capable of being left on a bit of an island here down in the bot lane. So we can see them immediately banning away those champions in the bot lane that may have a lot of roam potential, right? Traditionally, you don't want to see a Thresh banning out a Leona just because Leona typically doesn't have a good matchup in that lane. But this is the roam potential that 100 Thieves are respecting here. They're getting rid of champions that can move around the map, alleviate Ezreal in the bot lane, give him a bit of time on his own, and then help the rest of the team, help this Xin Zhao, help this Camille really get ahead of the game on the top side. Because what we're not seeing here, and something that has been a bit absent from this draft but not the meta, is Karma Lulu.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you hit on it, Rude. Dude, we haven't seen any of the enchanters taken off the board at all in this ban phase. It's almost like both these teams just hand shook them away. And there's a Xin Zhao on the table for Maryville. This is one of those tried and true from the early split the Karma engine Zhao, the Lulu engine Zhao to try to take over the enemy jungle. But the one thing we missed in all these bans is the Aurelia still up. Oh, I don't know if you can leave 11.14 Aurelia open, dude.
This is a champion that has seen so much presence now that she's received some changes. Some call them nerfs, some call them buffs, whatever it may have been. We're seeing Aurelia resurge now into the meta. Only needs 4 stacks now to get that Ionian further going. And now, with the Aurelia locked on in, have to imagine this is going to be going in toward that mid lane. I talked about it before we got into this, that Young was a big AD mid laner. The Aurelia is something well within his wheelhouse, and I have to imagine that it's going to go once again into that mid lane here. So 100 Thieves, they've locked themselves in a nice roundabout AD sources of damage here. They're still lacking a lot of magic damage, right? So there's a potential to see something along the top side come along. Silas is still open if they find a good matchup for it. And obviously with Maryville also sort of lacking that magic damage, we get a Carly to come through instead.
Oh, wow. Are they actually? They are.
Okay.
Okay, so itemization is going to be very obvious here for Maryville, but this is that classic Sejuani with 2 melee solo laners, Rudude, and that can be an extremely powerful combination for the likes of 100x. Just a question of who gets what. I would be with you. I'd imagine that Young is going to get this Aurelia. We know how much he loves those AD mid laners. He's incredibly mechanically talented on all of those types of champions, and likely going to see Gamsu on the Viego, unless Gamsu is a believer in the Alorum school of Dark Sejuani top technology here, dude.
I would love to see that, but I think that limiting Sejuani to being in one of the 2 solo lanes isn't something that 100 Thieves Next typically are going to want to be doing here. So, with that, I would hope that the Sejuani goes to the jungle. I do also believe in the dark tech of Sejuani top lane. Going to put that out there. I'm a firm believer as well. But something as well that we have to sort of note as well with this passive synergy that we're getting between Sejuani and Viego is that Viego gets 2 auto attacks for the price of 1 if he lands his Q. If you land that Q, fire off a couple auto attacks. I'm pretty sure that works with the Sejuani passive E as well, that you start stacking that up even faster than you necessarily would have done. So whilst you're thinking, okay, Sejuani with melees is great, Sejuani with Viego, even better than you might have initially imagined just because of that little interaction.
Yeah, it should be even a little better. I do think you are correct about that interaction. So 100x really playing off those interactions. The question will be whether they can make them stick. Camille, an extremely slippery champion here in the hands of Chippies. He's very proficient on this pick. He can split push with it later on, and that's really going to be one of the bigger questions is how do the side lanes evolve as this game goes on, because Maryville is going to be able to itemize extremely efficiently, right? You go for the interactions, but you give up the fact that you have no AP damage in your composition. Absolutely none here, Rudu. So this is the easiest, well, they're not Ninja Tavi anymore.
Plated steel caps.
Thank you. Plated steel is the easiest plated steel caps into armor items pathway I've ever seen from Maryville. I think we could even see like honestly, you could even go second item Frozen Heart on Ezreal. I still think it'll be a third item, but that's how over-indexed into AD this 100x side is. So you will see that itemization come through, and that might just sway these mid to late game side lane matchups where both teams can get out into a 1-3-1 with Camille and Akali, with Viego and Aurelia. Big question mark, of course, going to be the interaction between Aphelios and Ezreal in the later stage of the game if everyone on Maryville has all that armor.
Yeah, and with that being said, the Aphelios traditionally scales a lot better into the more generic hyper carry sense, but Ezreal is no slouch in the late game either, provides a lot of poke, a lot of consistent harassment from those Mystic shots that definitely puts teams on their back a little bit here. If they've got Chad Jungle in the front line, able to absorb those and maybe tank up a little bit more of the damage than you might have anticipated, then yes, the Ezreal isn't going to be having as much impact as you might have imagined. But at the same time, if that Ezreal starts to get a little bit online, a little bit snowboard, a little bit ahead of the curve, the fact that that Frozen Heart can come through even earlier really does make killing him that much more difficult, because not only Does it give you all the armor, all the attack speed reduction? It gives you the ability haste as well, and that's a stat that Ezreal just loves to have in his back pocket. Being able to rattle off mystic shots, be able to reset your cooldown on your arcane shift, makes you even more slippery, and champions like Aurelia, like Viego, trying to gain access to that backline are just going to be finding it even more difficult to do so, because there's a couple of little displacements coming through. We've got Xin Zhao ulti, we've got the Camille Hextech Ultimatum, which can, when used a little bit more defensively, cause a bit of disruption to the frontline dive. And then, of course, you've got Shady on the Nautilus, going to have so much presence with CC in these team fights that anybody trying to gain access to that backline, or Instinct in the backline himself, of his own team rather, going to be in a whole host of trouble because of that depth charge coming on through.
Yeah, the death charge will be very annoying to Aphelios, but should be able to exist decently in these fights. I think we saw one matchup in the LEC, I remember last weekend, where like all 5 champions on the enemy team had CC, and whoever was playing Aphelios just couldn't stand still and throw out an auto attack at all. I don't think that will be the case here for Instinct. With the Thresh alongside him, I think he should be able to dish damage back. He does have a few things to dodge that will be flying at him, notably chippies on the Camille, but I think there is enough, if they play it well, to get out of the dive that will be coming through from Maryville. So look for Instinct to get strong on this pick. There will be an eventuality at 2 to 3 items when he does turn on in damage and potentially turn off the lights, but again, it's going to be about staying alive in the dive, and whether Maryville wants to opt in to a 5v5. They can easily go into a 1-3-1, use this Ezreal to try to poke from range, clear waves from range, and try to let Chippies and Spyrax take over the game on side lanes, assuming they are ahead of Young and Gamsu.
And I really like the way that Maryville played out this draft, noting that that Camille came in before the first round, or the second round of bans, excuse me. The fact that they saw the Thresh, they identified Thresh has been picked, that means they want a hyper carry, right? We're going to take Camille before it can get banned away here, before there's any chance of removing it from the pool. We're going to take ourselves the Camille and make sure that whatever hyper carry they lock in will get locked down, regardless of Dark Passage, regardless of knockups, flays, whatever it may be, unless you're able to pull the Camille out of her own ulti. That ultimate is going to be going down onto Instinct pretty much every single fight. Spyrax is going to be able to try and find access with that Hextech Ultimatum being used by Trippies, right? Odd Orange as well will find it a lot easier to get into the backline when the Aphelios is in a designated zone where he can't particularly move from. And it's going to be on the likes of Chad Jungle, on the likes of Busio here, on these more CC-oriented champions to provide enough damage, provide enough CC to keep the Aphelios safe, because if they can't do that, then their composition sort of falls a little bit in on itself. Yes, they've still got Young. Yes, they've still got Gamsu, 2 very melee-oriented, damage-oriented champions, and if Gamsu gets a reset, there are a lot of big abilities that you can be taking, right? A Kali Shroud on a Viego just seems disgusting. Camille with the hookshot as well, gaining access to whoever they may like. There's lots of opportunities for both of these teams to go huge. It really will come down to who can pull out the stops in the early game, who can find those advantages, and who looks the best coming out of the gates.
Yeah, I think the early game will be very critical, particularly when you draft an Aphelios. Your early game is always extremely critical to trying to get to the point where he can become an extremely effective champion, dish out all that damage. And a big question mark will be between Chad Jungle and the Odd Orange, and whether or not their soul laners have priority, right? The Odd Orange should clear a lot faster than Chad Jungle will in the early portion of the game on the Xin Zhao, but whether or not he can fight for Scuttle Crabs is largely going to depend on how the solo lane goes and who can roam down to those Scuttle Crabs, to those objectives. And honestly, I think these solo lanes are about as skill check as I've seen in a while here, Rooted. So if you want to look for some early game action and some early game decisive plays, it is these solo lanes between Young and Spyrax and Chippies and Gamsu.
It definitely is. Now I want to make us sure that we're going for the pause at 5 here. I know I said pause at 10, but if you've gone to that is absolutely fine. We did have a little bit of a pause in game, so we'll let that one buffer out. And I didn't forget the scene, guys. Don't you worry. I'm not that washed as a producer. DJ, if you just let me know when you're all good in that regard.
I am good.
Paused at 5 seconds. That is beautiful. What we'll do then, 3, 2, 1 on pause, and then on pause we will do as such. 3, 2, 1 on pause. And we should be good to go, ladies and gentlemen. Maryville coming at you from the red side. We have got 100 Thieves coming at you from, or rather, excuse me, the other way around. It says it right on the leaderboard at the top right there, so it doesn't matter. The overlays are fine. They are set and ready to go. And as are both of these teams, you can hear the pings coming out the gates. Everybody setting up, and it looks like we've got a little bit of spice from Maryville early on.
Yeah, bit of a four-man stack in the top side from Maryville. See if they are looking for something specific. Who's poking his head in. I know he spotted one. The question is, has he spotted Shady? Looks like he is going to walk away into safety. So nothing going to pay off for Maryville on this top side with the four-man play. Just give away a little bit of information, but it looks like we'll get, probably a late invade. They're going to walk over Ward, dude.
They have been spotted out here, and obviously that does indicate to both teams that they should probably back away, right? We have got 100 Thieves just chilling away. They do have that display, or that early on disengage ward, I suppose, more so than anything else, to let them know that there has been a bit of a ward placed down in their own jungle. It's not been responded by 100 Thieves, right? They didn't get anything across any of the enemy's buffs. So Maryville operating under a little bit more darkness, I suppose, with in terms of information. You know, Chad Jungle not starting on his red buff, as Maryville can see, must be starting on his blue, right? By extension, they can figure that one out. As for 100 Thieves, they don't have quite the same luxury, but with Azog and Shady leashing here, it's not only going to give Odd Orange a faster pathing, but it's also going to give away where he's probably starting.
Yep. Think they should be able to know where that jungler is starting, so information will be symmetrical for now, largely, though not being able to see where Odd Orange goes from this camp could be a little bit of an advantage, but he is a Xin Zhao, kind of a full clearing jungler routine if I've seen one, so I would expect him just to go all the way through these camps, especially knowing he does have the slight clear advantage over Chad Jungle in terms of speed. He should be able to get up towards that top side first, and Azog and Shady getting a little bit pushed in due to the wave control, but he is an Ezreal, so should be just fine to farm up from range. Well, though, Gamsu's level 2. Chippy's now going to tick it here. Knight goes down. Here we go. Chippy's Gamsu, run for the hill, baby. He might need to flash, but no, just the dash away will be enough. And that Ignite TP, Camille, not quite going to work out there. Level 2, dude.
Yeah, so not getting the kill there, but forcing out what we're assuming is going to be Gamsu's TP at the very least, right there. Ticking over to level 2. Just enough time there before Gamsu really looked to make the play himself. Now they've TP'd back up. Chippy's, if he's able to find something of a trade here before he goes back to base, then that could put him in a really good spot just because he's going to go back anyway. But now we see Spyrex add on Orange inside Chad's jungle.
Okay, this is what we were talking about, Rude. Where and who, which soul laners are going to get that advantage? It looks like it's Spyrex early on. We could be getting some 2v2 action, but keep your eyes on Busio. He's all the way up here from the bottom lane on the reset for Instinct. It looks like everything will just settle down, and nicely done by 100X defending their junglers, well, his jungle.
Wow, okay, Spyrex holding this wave here very nicely outside the turret. Is going to force Young into a pretty dangerous position, and with Xin Zhao on the map, Odd Orange can very easily lap back around, try to find this gank. Again, Busio is nearby, is in the river. That Dark Passage may be available. We're only at level 2, so it's difficult to tell at this stage. But obviously Spyrex holding this one, definitely trying to keep it outside the turret, but I think that Young's done just about enough here to force it underneath and make sure that Spyrex can't hold this freeze.
Yep, nicely done there by Young and by Busio, honestly, just recognizing the large timer. Maryville were not interested in sending Shady up to that mid lane, so the presence of Busio allows Young to feel confident enough to stick around, shove this one under, and make sure he gets the reset he needs in this early game. Very nice stuff. Understanding their pressure points on the map, 100x, and looks like they will just be able to get that reset on their mid laner, head back out. Everything pretty much even. Chad Jungle right on par with Odd Orange despite the attempted invade.
Yeah, and something that is a little bit different between these two jungles as for right now, going to be that Chad Jungle is out on the map, ready to gank before we see Odd Orange being able to do so. Odd Orange has to go back to base, pick up his pickaxe, spend all that gold from his first clear, but we see Gamsu now has support of the Sejuani. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chad Jungle's there, but I guess Chippy's not going deep enough. just slowly playing with this wave as his jungler gets back out on the map. Maybe that's the comms here, Rudude, understanding that there is one less person on the map at the moment for Maryville. Now you do have Odd Orange clearing out his bottom side. He'll be available to gank in a minute or so. But if that is the comms, that is certainly excellent patience, and it does dodge the potential lane gank.
Yeah, I think that Chippy's actually spotted him out there. There were a couple pings on the map that sort of suggested that they'd been spotted there. So the Sejuani was definitely documented in her positioning. But what I'm really enjoying is the give and take of support roam timers. And it's very, very boring to people that don't play or particularly look toward bot lane. But we've seen Busio make his trek up to the mid lane. We just saw Shady do the same thing. Nothing actually happened between the mid laners, but it was good to see that the supports were there in case there was an opportunity to maybe make something like that happen. Because this is really, the push from the AD carries leads into, okay, there's time where the minions are hitting the turret. I can leave my Ezreal here to poke under the turret if I want, and then I can go roam mid lane. That's exactly what Shady does here. We've got Azog as well, quite happy farming up. You can see that both of these AD carries have sort of resided themselves to that farm up mentality. We've got Instinct starting off with the longsword, going back, getting himself a cull. Tyr and Sheen, Ezreal's bread and butter at this stage, and now they're all in mid lane.
We got all in, but I don't think they know, because guess who's here again? It's Busio on the timer. That shuts down the potential all-in from Spyrax, and now he will not have access to that perfect execution. Scuttle Crab in the bottom river, that's going to belong to 100x.
Nicely done here, baiting out one ultimate from the mid lane. It's these small advantages from sort of laning advantages that are being generated by Young that are segueing into these smaller objectives, right? It might not seem like a big deal, but one Scuttle Crab going to a jungler does give a slight lead over to said player, right? Chad Jungle being able to pick himself up one extra crab. That's an extra camp that Odd Orange isn't going to be able to amass for himself. So for now, junglers go back to their business of farming up their camps and having a nice time about it, with Chippy's jumping in, has got the ignite again.
Yeah, jungler's coming up here. Odd Orange is here, but might not even need him. Gamster's going so low, and this time the Ignite will take care of Viego. Ruin King is going to fall to ruins.
Wow, and there we go. The Ignite comes through this time round. The Camille has the damage. The 1v1 hasn't been looking too great for Gamsu in these trades, and Chippy's manages to finally finish off the job here in the top lane. So getting himself a nice little solo kill right there is exactly what Maryville will have wanted. First blood coming through here. Bit of a weaker or bit of a slower paced early game more so than anything else. One that Maryville come out with, at least to begin with. And now, when they notice that Odd Orange is on the top side, they're going to look to maybe try and take this dragon down on the bot side, with bot lane push already in their favour. And Young doing some nice dancing around in the mid lane. Looks like this should be uncontested.
Yep, Drake is uncontested for 100x despite the kill pressure in the top lane, and Chippy's having TP. Maryville just not too interested in that one. It is only an early Cloud Drake, maybe not your favorite Drake in the laning phase here, Rooted, so maybe that is the calculus from 100x, just more interested in trying to keep building up gold advantages around the map and trying to let Chippy's keep doing his work in the top side where he does have that kill lead and is starting to build up a bit of a CS difference as well.
Now, you may say that you don't like Cloud Dragons early. I love having Cloud Dragons early because of two reasons. One, ability haste is probably one of the best stats to get early because traditionally you don't buy it in your build path out of your first item. And secondly, because it means that you don't get Cloud Soul. Teams don't like Cloud Soul because otherwise, you know, in a game where they could have won if it was Infernal, if it was Mountain, etc., and they get a Cloud Soul, they feel pretty bad. If you get a Cloud Dragon early on, it means there's no Cloud Soul, means you get one of those more high-ticket souls on the board for you. Something that everybody here should be licking their lips at what should be a very objective-oriented mid-game, because these dragons are going to begin to mean quite a lot.
Yep, and it will be an ocean or a mountain soul in this game. Hook, though, going to land onto Young. I was going to say, I don't think there's a whole lot that you can follow up with there, Rooted, and they will just back away. But nice snipe from Shady. I honestly did not think that dredge line was going to connect.
You know what? Get your eye in early, right? You throw those hooks. It means nothing that it connects. Nobody gets anything from it. But Shady's just increasing that hook percentage, getting those stats bolstered just a little bit here. And it is with this topside rotation that Maryville are going to be able to net themselves the Rift Herald here. So the topside advantage going in their favour. We did see that 100 Thieves have sent Gamsu down to the bot side in an effort to break him out of this rough lane that he's had up against Chippy's. hook doesn't quite connect from Busio, so for this time being, Shady going to be okay. But with Gamsu going down to the bot side, they just send Chippies down with TP. They know that they're not going to need that teleport for a long time. If the top laners are playing down on the bot side, come 3 minutes time, then it means that the TP isn't particularly necessary because that dragon will be the objective of focus. So moving Chippies back into this lane where he's been having success, finding the advantages up against Viego, exactly what Maryville want, and going to continue to try and find these advantages.
Yeah, I think both teams going to be pretty happy with how these first 10 minutes have gone. You look up at the gold count, it's basically dead even. 100X get their Drake. Maryville gets the Rift Herald that they were clearly prioritizing as they sent all 5 members to pick that one up. Now we'll have to see where they do use it, Rude Dude, because they have spent a lot of resources, including Chippy's TP, to ensure that one was taken down. Is this just a Chippy's angle? Are you putting that in top lane, or do you think it's a more priority target to head towards the mid instead?
No, I think typically we don't see teams look to break open tier 1 with the first Herald at the very least, so would imagine they're going to put it out to a side lane, and when you've got a top laner who's doing pretty well, Instinct steps too far forward, has to flash.
Instinct, yeah, has to flash away. Fortunately, no extra follow-up in this lane. Instinct will just be fine. Gonna have to wait 5 minutes for that cooldown, though, as his buddy Busio was not in the area, trying to make one of those roams back down to the bot lane. Nice timing recognition by Shady, as he does get that summoner spell, but they will have to punish it before that is of any use to them, Rudude.
Exactly. It was still a good flash from Instinct, a flash that he shouldn't have had to make, though, and Shady. I like the play. Positive, proactive moves from Maryville so far. They look to try and make the play onto the Aphelios, who they recognize has no flash. Unfortunately, misses the execution on it, but these things do happen, right? Nobody's perfect, and it just goes to show that if you're looking for these plays, you may well find them. Sometimes you just don't. Busio here, once again, exhibiting that sometimes you don't quite hit them, but that is absolutely fine. Now we've got a flash for flash trade. Once again, you will still happily take a flash on a Nautilus if you're Maryville, in exchange for the Aphelios flash, because that is the all-present cooldown when you come to those team fights.
Yep, that is the big cooldown, and of course, when you have Hex Flash, it feels even better if you're a support, right? It's almost like you only lost like a half or 3/4 of your flash, so just gonna be fine here is Shady, and I agree with you. I do like these aggressive plays he's trying to bring out. It's what you want from your engaged support. We already saw him throw out that hook in mid lane just to let him know what's up, Rude Dude. We want more of that throughout this game. So these two teams just hovering around, still deadlocked in the gold count. Just that one kill for Chippies on the board, and still looking for a spot for that Shelly to start off the tower destruction.
And whilst we've got a little bit of time here, I'm going to take a... well, actually I'm not, because we've got dragon spawning in about 15 seconds. Quick item check, though. We've got 2 mythics completed on the 100 Thief side. On the other side, none for Maryville. So maybe you'd anticipate that they have a slight advantage in the fight that is pending here. But with the Rift Herald going down, they're going to try and use this to convert into mid lane priority, and as such, the fight.
No flash for Instinct. All the damage comes in over the top, and he does finally fall to Odd Orange. They are piling in here, but the rest of 100X is piling back on top. We are looking at a 1-for-2 in favor of 100X as their items come through, and the second Drake will be there.
They buy so much time with the Immortal Shield Bow right there. Instinct is able to absorb so many cooldowns, and I want to call out an MVP level play from Busio. Denies backline access from 2 champions. Spyrex was unable to get in. The ultimate perfect execution part 1 was interrupted by the Flay. Was never really able to get down, get dirty in that team fight as the Akali would have loved to have done so. So really well played by Busio there to allow that to come through, and that is the level of Thresh that we're going to need to see throughout the rest of this game. It was a brilliant foreshadow for what we can see later on in the game, because Spyrex is going to be looking to do that on repeat. So is Odd Orange, so is Chippies. And if we see that Flay hit the marker every single time, Instinct is going to be loving life. If, however, that Flay comes through a second too early, a second too late, then it's really going to be feeling a little bit worse for wearing your Aphelios. He's going to meet the same fate that he met regardless, but we can see with the respects being paid by the items, traditionally when you've got a lot of dive on the enemy team, you will see one of these more defensive mythics from AD carries, like the Gale Force, like the Immortal Shield Bow. Recognizing that Gale Force is somewhat of a non-factor versus Camille, I love that we've got Immortal Shield Bow here to give him a little bit more safety, a little bit more durability when he's being dove upon by 3-4 members of Maryville, and you got to see it right there. Bought enough time to get 2 kills in response, and the items already paying off.
I think that is the absolute right item choice. We've seen a lot of Gale Force recently out of Aphelios. Danny's in particular has been making some waves in the LCS, but this is the right choice for a comp that wants to dive on top of you, and it paid massive dividends. 400x. Young getting a lot of damage down. The Spyrax's Shroud just going to keep him safe for the moment. Does have his jungler in his pocket, but Chad Jungle is also here looking potentially for this dive. Nope, Young just going to back away, deciding it's not worth the risk. Because after that play, I think 100x feeling very, very positive about their position in this game. Already with 2 Drakes on the board. That Mountain Soul on the Rift here, next one in 3 minutes. And this Aphelios continuing to get stronger and stronger. He's got a cold that he's about to cash in as he works towards that second item.
Yeah, both of these AD carries, as we mentioned earlier on, opted into items that directly built into their mythics or other items that they want. Right, Ezreal picking up the tier to go into the Mana Moon, which we actually see rushed by Azog here. Not something that we typically see, but is still paying off really well because he's been stacking it so effectively. He's going to get that Mirror Mana before the next Drake fight, probably before the next fight really happens, unless we see a really hard contest for this Rift Herald. Also in the items that we can sort of document here, we have got Aurelia paying big respect to Spyrax on the Akali, going in for that 1v1 build path because he's opted into the Wit's End. This item gives a lot of MR here in the 1 versus 1, which is obviously very good versus the Akali, but also Wit's End in Season 11 gives you a little bit of movement speed after an auto attack and after a Q.
Yeah, Wit's End, very strong item, but we're going to have to see if Chippy's can use his items as there is a gank in the bottom lane. Already coming out, the Hextech ultimatum. Chippy's going to get stunned up. There's the interaction, but it's not enough. Chippy's going to take down Gamsu. He's still fighting. He's healing up through the Conqueror. He's going to get the shield as well, and Chippy's might just outplay him all. He's finally going to get taken down by Young on the TP, but the rest of the members of Maryville are here. Spyrax forcing a flash away out of Chad Jungle. Young still trying to clean up this fight, but it's going to end in a 2-for-1 in favor of Maryville, and Chippy's is an absolute monster right now.
Yeah, one of the things that we haven't been able to touch on, we can look at the gold lead and say that there wasn't particularly one, but look at the intangibles of top lane. Chippy's has had a 2-level lead over Gamsu when that fight erupted, and it meant that the 1v2 was all too easy for him, able to collect a kill, made Chad Jungle actually burn his flash to get away to safety, required a TP down from Young just to finish off the Camille. Maryville now feeling very good about their position in this game because Camille as a split pusher, somewhat unparalleled, particularly in a composition quite like this where we've got Aurelia, who might be a good match traditionally, but who's built Wit's End, has built exclusively for this 1v1 against an Akali, has got about 1,000 gold's worth of wasted stats with the magic resist right there that Spyrax is, going to be not wanting to play against, but the Chippies would absolutely love to. They want to send Chippies off to the side lane and keep him as that split push win condition. They have got every opportunity to do so. They're more than happy to keep Camille farming up side lanes, and particularly with the buff in 11-14, 11-13, to get those side lane turrets taken down. The inner ones in particular now giving about twice the gold that they used to. If you keep your Camille in the side lane for long enough, she's gonna be very scary.
Oh, she's going to be very scary. Meanwhile, Odd Orange, a little bit of a dash in. Dashes right back out. I don't know if you saw it, but you see this right here? You see the double control that got popped there, Rudy? I had to stop myself from giving a little chuckle. It's a little unfortunate for 100x, of course, won't make a big difference. Both of them are just cleared away by Maryville. 100x now looking to mount a defense of the mid lane as the third Drake is spawning. And of course, this is a critical Drake. Ooh, 3-man root from the Aphelios into a stun, into the chains. Odd Orange going so low, trying to heal up there a little bit with that Gore Drinker. Fight breaking out here on the top side. Gamsu's the first one to fall to Odd Orange. They're turning it back around. So many blinking health bars on both sides, but Instinct is still very healthy. Getting a second root on Spyrax, getting multiple, and there's the cleanup from Instinct. They couldn't get enough damage down, and the Aphelios is truly online. He picks up a double kill. It's a 4-1 in favor of 100x, and they will pick up Soul Point.
Dragon number 3 goes over to 100 Thieves, and ladies and gentlemen, we have got ourselves one heck of a game, an absolute brawl in the mid lane to start us off here for this mid game. Instinct just manages to keep himself alive. The guns were not perfect right there, but they fitted the composition and fitted the necessities of 100 Thieves so incredibly well. Double re-engage was able to come through. They used the Graviton to start off the fight. They used it once again to find themselves more access, more champions, more death of Maryville University, getting getting a double root off the back end of that, followed up by a flash from Busio that netted 4 kills for 100 Thieves in the overall play. They got themselves the dragon as well, and whilst there haven't been any turret takes yet this game, DJ, which seems absolutely crazy when we're 20 minutes into a game, there have been a lot of kills, lots of action, and when those turrets start to go down, this game pace is going to start to balloon, because that's a lot of gold that has been left up on the board.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I will say I think it's probably a little worrying for Maryville that all of these turrets are still alive. They will finally take down the first one in the top lane, but considering the lead that Chippies has had, the fact that they have 2 champions that can split push, the fact these turrets have stayed alive for so long has massively benefited 100X in getting Instinct stronger and stronger in this game, and you see it pay massive dividends in the last fight as he cleans it up. He engages it and cleans it up with the Gravitum, and now he's on that 2-item mark with the Runon's Hurricane. That is already a big power spike, Rudude, and 3rd item, he might just be running away.
It's going to take him a little while to get there, though, because he did skip boots in favour of getting those 2 items fairly early on. We also see the 800 gold pit stop toward Executioner's Calling as well. A very needed pit stop, don't get me wrong, but it is going to be a fair while before we see that Infinity Edge fully completed. We also do see Maryville managing to sweep the entire outer turret line right here. And as I talked about, that being a lot of gold, post that fight, we did see that 100 Thieves got themselves a nice little lead. But instead, you know, those turrets have started to go down. We're starting to see Maryville now start to clap back. These outer turrets aren't as much of a priority come 21 minutes into the game, and you can see it right here because teams are quite happy to start sacrificing. This is like trading pawns in chess. They're trying to give over a little objective here, a little bit of an advantage here, to try and make their stronger sort of fortified lineup really much stronger, with the Aurelia getting a couple of turrets up, or with 1 turret on the top side, giving your solo laners gold on the bot side if you're Maryville. It's all investments. They're trying to reap rewards of solo lanes later on.
I mean, I think they're going to. Young is 3-0-4 with the most CS in the game. He should be basing very soon for his 2nd item, which should be a mythic, Rudude. And honestly, on that item, I don't know if they can deal with him in a side lane. It might still be close with Chippies, but it certainly shouldn't be with Spyrax at this point. And there it is, that Divine Sunder, now completed Young, is a very big threat in this game. And 100X completely in control. Instinct, he's caught out. He is completely caught out, and they're going to blow him up. There is the Hex Tech ultimatum into all the CC. Bucio's Lantern cannot do anything inside of that hexagon, and now Baron is on the table for Maryville out of nowhere.
And they should be able to take this here. Remember, Instinct is their big win condition for the team fights. The constant DPS is simply gone, but Spyrax is caught.
Spyrax gets hooked up. He's trying to stay alive inside the shroud. They haven't quite spotted him out just yet. Oh, he can't quite get over the wall with the R1. That's going to give a reset now to Gamsu. He is wearing the Akali skin. Young is coming in, and the Baron attempt will be thwarted by 100X. That is huge for them as they stop the attempt to take with their AD carry down. They now have full control of the bottom side as well, with just a minute 15 until the soul is available, Rudude.
So Vision is going to go into 100 Thieves' back pocket right here. They should have complete control over this bot side. Chippies doesn't have ulti, so Gamsu should be able to get away right here, and does so nicely. But you can see already the bot lane vision has been littered throughout the Maryville University jungle, and now they're going to have to face check cautiously to make sure that they're not getting picked apart on entrance to that jungle. You see Spyrax TPs down to the bot lane here to make sure that there's, you know, presence already immediately out on the map, because they need to get as much out of this sort of time frame where 100 Thieves are basing, getting their wards back, to make sure that they've got control of the river here, with Soul being a really present threat right now in the fearful minds of Maryville. They need to make sure that they've got as much control over this bot side as possible, and slightly surprised to see 100 Thieves give them the luxury of moving in right here. They're probably going to go down, just make sure that they're working as 5 to try and take that fight. Instinct still has both his summoner spells. That's the really crucial part. When you're locked up in the Hextech Ultimatum, Burning Flash and Heal seems redundant, and it's good of Instinct to recognise that. But now they're grouped up, now they're 5 members, now they're going to start storming through.
Hook not quite going to land, but there's the engage again, using the gravitum. The fight going to get kicked off here. Keep your eyes on Instinct in the back line. He is still untouched. He is still full HP, and Young's already cleaned up one. There's the reset for Gamsu, and this is looking like the demise of Maryville University. Azog is trying to do the chip damage from afar, but this fight is already completely split, and now he's going to get rooted up. Instinct's going in. He's got the shields as well. He's flashing in. There's the play. Azog is going to go down. This dragon should be forfeit as Gamtu's going to clean up Spyrex. The flash you will get him, and it's time for the ace to come on through. It's a double kill for Gamsu. An ace for 100x, and they'll get the soul and the Baron.
They're going to have their cake. They'll eat it too. They'll have everything on the menu, DJ. They get themselves the big fight that they've been dreaming of this entire game. Instinct once again opens up with the gravitum to make sure that they can find themselves all the leads that they would have wanted in that fight. And really, we get to see Gamsu use the Viego to its fullest potential. Doesn't matter that he's been put down in the early stages. Okay, it doesn't get stolen away. Shady probably going to be stealing away his life, but at the end of the day, this is going to be 100 Thieves getting themselves not only the Baron Soul, or the Baron, not only the Dragon Soul, but also a massive foothold and a massive lead in this game, which is something that nobody's had throughout.
Bless your heart, Shady. That would have been the most epic steal of all time there, having the support flash over the wall to take away the soul, but unfortunately, he cannot get it done, and now 100x in complete control of this game. They have the side lane pressure with this Aurelia. 5-0-4 is Young, continuing his spree of destruction across EGL. He was incredible yesterday. Already looking like it again here today, and Instinct is nearing his 3-item mark. He's even got a stopwatch in the inventory. Rude dude, how do Maryville even look to approach a fight at this point?
With great caution, to be honest. That's about all that we can say. And now Gamsu looking to try and take on Chippy's on the bot side. He's absolutely fine with the hook shot. But you remember how you were saying that 100 Thieves had built a little bit linear in their item threshold, right? Or in their damage profile. We see 4 ninja plated steel caps come through right now. That is absolutely insane. The Instinct of all people has actually gone to pick that up. Really not fearing Spyrax on this Akali, right? This armor that is coming through from the boots is doing a lot of work to protect him against Odd Orange, against Chippies, against Azog. And now, with the Baron at their backs, they fear nobody. They are charging into the base, and we see that Maryville, they're trying to go for a 1-3-1, but they don't have Baron. They've not even broken the base yet. The solo laners are still in those side lanes, and 100 Thieves could just try and break open the entire game.
I mean, I think Maryville just realized they can't fight it. This is exactly why. Look at the pile on. There's the reset for Gamsu as the first Nexus turret will fall. They're going to go straight on to the second. There's no way to win this 5v5 unless you're killing Instinct. And can you even do it? Bit of a meat grinder here around the empty Nexus, but it is still going to be the members of Maryville falling. They cannot overcome the strength, the item differential, the team fighting prowess of 100x, and 100x will clean up game number 1.
A slight little misunderstanding there from Maryville. They send 2 people out to the side lanes and 100 Thieves come away with the game. Brilliant shot calling to say, hey, these guys are still off in the side lane. What are they doing? They need to get back, and they just don't do it in time. 100 Thieves pull the trigger. They go not only for the inhibitor, they go for the Nexus and the Nexus turrets as well. And boy, oh boy, do they get it. 1-0 100 Thieves next, and Maryville, they got to shape up for game number 2.
Yeah, they definitely need to shape up in game number 2, Rudu. Like you said in the draft, I think the attempt with the Camille was pretty clever at the end of that phase 1. You saw exactly how it worked, right? That pick off in the mid lane onto Instinct is exactly what you wanted from Maryville, but they just didn't have the juice in the rest of their composition. And once they got chased off of that Baron, all the control on the map was just ceded to 100x, who understood how to fight with this composition beautifully. Instinct, Young, and Gamsu, look at the damage from them. The early roams from Busio. This looks like a team that is incredibly organized, that knows how to play their composition and knows how to play games out to clean them up, Rudude. 100x has been looking scary since the end of Risen and has certainly kept that momentum going at the start of EGL.
And what what we're going to have to do, DJ, is see if they can continue this reign of terror. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back after just a short break here. Make sure that all the players are loaded up into the lobby. Once again, thank you everybody for hanging out and coming to this sort of community round event, community round cast here by myself and DJ. We'll hope to see you guys on the other side for game number 2, because I wouldn't be surprised if we see a game number 3, but equally, after that, we could very well see a quick 2-0. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 2 between 100X and Maryville University. I am DJ, once again joined by Rude. Thanks again for inviting me here for this incredible series, and we are getting into picks and bans for game 2 after 100X swept Maryville aside in that game 1. And just like game 1, they are flying through bans here, Rude.
They really are, and we are seeing some slight differentiations from Maryville here. What I love to see is the adaptation already. We get to see Aurelia taken off the board. We get to see Zin's out as well, taken off the board. But with that, DJ, what that opens up is the potential for this Diana first pick for 100 Thieves, and also the Callista to be locked on in by Maryville. Going to see this one in Azog's hands, you have to imagine, going down in that bot lane to see what sort of engage potential can be provided. But 100 Thieves, they throw down a massive gauntlet themselves. They lock in Diana Yasuo, which is an unrivaled combo for mid lane 2 versus 2s, and they lock in Varus, somebody to go toe-to-toe with the Callista in the laning phase to potentially try and beat it down, and also somebody who has a lot of setup, a lot of engage to follow up from that Diana.
Yes, give me more of this, Rude. 100X have been busting this out for Young and Chad Jungle so many times in the last couple of games. I love to see it. We talked about this is one of Young's like all-time favorite champions. He's incredible on this Yasuo. This combo is rising just because of the ease of access with your engage. It can absolutely smack people down if they are not ready for it.
And one of the things about this combo that I find so beautiful is that it's not just the Diana sets up the Yasuo, but the Yasuo also then sets up the Diana. So often on a Diana combo, you'll see people, if they slightly delay their flash, they're still able to flash out of the R2 from Diana, flash away from the large portion of the damage, you know, because they've been a little bit late on those trigger fingers, right? But with Yasuo locking them all up there, the last breath buys them enough time to stay inside that ulti and allows time for Diana's second part of the Moonfall to come down, crash down on everyone, and cause an absolute mass of AoE damage. Imagine that with a corrupted chains going through, piercing arrow layered over the top of everybody. There is so much damage already from these first 3 picks from 100 Thieves that if we see anything but a teamfight composition from here on in, then I'm just absolutely disappointed.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You gotta follow up on this already incredible engage. You've even got the Varus locked in for Instinct. He looked great on this pick yesterday in both of his games up against AoE. You've got damage over the top. You've got the engage. We need to see this rounded out on the side of Maryville, though. Already got a couple of ruined champions here, Callista and Viego in alongside Renekton this time around for Gamsu, and it's been a bit of a different look today from Gamsu or excuse me, this is Chippy's. Wow. I'm on the wrong side here. Chippy's Renekton. This is a champion he has played quite a bit before. Very comfortable on this pick. What they still need, though, Rude, is some sort of jungler and some sort of AP. They're kind of taking the 100X approach to game number 2.
Yeah, you know, don't need AP if you just kill them fast in a forehead. They might be able to do so with all the damage that they've built up so far. 100 Thieves continue their precipice of, well, we build CC for AoE teamfights. Galio fits that brief perfectly. Diana Galio combo going to be coming through this time round. Layer that on top of everything else. This team fight really does fight itself for 100 Thieves. You know, if they're able to press their R buttons, they're going to be able to win the team fights. It now becomes up to Maryville to say, what have we got to be able to eat? A, be able to disengage this, or B, be able to move into a side lane and maybe make something else happen. And we alluded to this, DJ, a little bit earlier on in game number 1. It might not have been Chippy studying at Alorim School. Instead, maybe Gamsu's been to the Sejuani top class.
Yeah, I think it is going to end up being Gamsu on this Sejuani top. We love to see it. I'm excited to see how this one plays. We have seen it from Alorum. We've seen it tear up his solo queue. Many top players think this is an actual thing. It's a very strong pick, but on the other end, Maryville gonna bust out the Karthus. I actually really like this at the end of the draft. They needed a lot of AP damage, Rude, and this was banned away in game 1. Nothing better for over-the-top AP than a Karthus.
Now, whilst we've been hyping up the 100 Thieves squad here and the composition that they've built, let's touch on Maryville's here, because not only is Karthus a really good answer to the dive, if Karthus dies, you know, in the middle of everybody, guess who's going to be on top of the Maryville squad? It's going to be the majority of 100 Thieves next, right? That Defile is going to be ripping through them. The 4 champions that are all melee, that are all diving down into that, are going to be sat on top of Karthus. Everybody else as well going to be trying to dish out a lot of damage. But also, lane by lane, looking at the Renekton versus Yasuo matchup. This is renownedly known as one of Yasuo's worst matchups in League of Legends, right? So looking to see if the Yas can keep himself safe, if Young is able to sort of bide that time, alleviate the pressure of the Renekton in the early game to get to that point of teamfight dominance, because Maryville have got themselves some very clear win conditions. They've still got themselves Kalista Leona bot lane. They've still got themselves Renekton into Yasuo in the mid lane. And on top of all of that, they're going to have Viego resetting with Yasuo potentially being taken away, the stuns coming through from a Sejuani or a Diana. If we see this team fight get unlocked by Maryville, and if they crucially get themselves into a strong early game position, this series could very easily be leveled up.
Yeah, I think the series absolutely could be leveled up. We know these two teams are incredibly close in terms of their potential, the talent of their players, the organization of their teams, and I love what Maryville have done at the end of this draft. I think this Karthus pick could be a masterstroke. The odd orange is very, very familiar with it. It gives their composition. It really rounds it out. If you can protect this Karthus in the early game, this can just smash. The question I have for you, Rooted, is can they actually protect this Karthus with their solo laners?
You know, I talked about it earlier on, right? Renekton, very strong in the mid lane. I expect he'll be able to dish out his line share of damage and find the priority to protect Karthus in the early game. Outside of that, the top lane matchup, I am gonna take a firm seat back and say Viego versus Sejuani. I haven't got a clue. Sejuani, if she's able to find the double shot procs through the W, there's a very real possibility that you can come out on top of those trades. Equally, there's the same chance that Viego's just going to absolutely slam through the Sejuani come one item, because Divine Sundra up against tanks needs no introduction. Does exactly what you'd expect it to do, and be able to maybe cut through the Sejuani. So it'll really come down to how that top lane pivots, because if we look at the bot side as well, Maryville once again got themselves plenty of space here with Kalista Leona to buy the time for Karthus. You're not really expecting the Varus and the Galio in particular to be able to duel back too early on. Galio here picked as a more mitigating factor in the 2v2, as opposed to a champion that's going to be looking to particularly pounce on a Kalista.
And yeah, Callista lane, you always got to be afraid of the Callista lane. This champion has risen because it is so incredibly dominant in the laning phase, can punish you for trying to take passive scaling champions. Varus is not exactly that kind of champion, as we do have a bit of a client boom here. We'll get right back into that in a second, I do believe. Looks like issue for Chippies. He'll be back in just a minute, but we can kind of talk through the Maryville side of this bottom lane in this Callista, and the fact that, like you said, they should have priority with this lane. The question then becomes, if you have priority in this lane, uh, are you playing around more of the bottom side? Is this a dragon stacking team now, as opposed to what we saw from 100X? Or are you still trying to look around that top side of the map if you think that your solo laners can outdo the 100X solo laners, like Chippy's kind of did against Gamsu in game one?
I think regardless of where Maryville are going to lay their priority, they have one goal, and that is avoid team fights at all costs. They've got a pretty distinct window between levels 1 through 6, where 100 Thieves don't necessarily have the same fighting power, and then the second level 6 comes in, it turns on a dime. 100 Thieves fighting power goes from about a 25% capacity up to that full 100 in a split second. So if Maryville are able to, get themselves through the early game with a lead and try and find that dragon in the early stages of the game, I can very well see Maryville find themselves with a nice little lead early on. But at the same time, trying to force fights around a dragon, that's not too difficult for a lot of these teams, right? Dragons are places where teams go to fight. You're looking for the objective, you want to battle for it. Guess what? 100 Thieves is going to be there to duel you and to make you want that dragon and make you fight for it the hard way. So I think that Maryville, they're going to have to try and make something happen early on and sort of beat them with their wallets as opposed to beat them with the composition, because there's no doubt that the team fight is just maybe not necessarily better, but much, much easier to execute here for 100 Thieves. So that is something that they really need to be cognizant of as they go into these mid-game team fights.
Yeah, certainly going to need to be. We already know that 100X are dragon lovers here, Rudude, right? They got soul in 23, 24 minutes in the last game, so clearly had priority on controlling those in game number one. I doubt that necessarily changes that drastically in game number two, but we'll see if they do opt to try to take a fight around them at some point. Um, if we're looking for early game action when you have a Karthus in the jungle, right? Which lane are we kind of looking at here?
You
It's
know,
a little hard for Karthus to gank pre-6, right? So what are they trying to work with?
honestly, it comes down to, in that case, right? You hit it on the nail, hit the nail on the head right there. Karthus doesn't really gank too well. Has got the Wall of Pain, so there's a chance that he's able to find access with that. But mostly, you're looking at either overextended lanes, which isn't something that we typically see too often punished because teams are able to ward track junglers and make sure that they know where they're being sort of ganked from necessarily. Or in that case, a lane with a lot of CC. And I'm going down the board right here. I'm seeing W stun for Viego, W stun for Spyrax. But then I'm seeing Leona down in the bot lane, and my mind goes, maybe Leona's got the best CC out of all of that. So I'm looking toward the bot lane to be that sort of gank power, that access that we're looking toward for the Maryville University squad to maybe try and collect a couple kills onto this Varus, get your Kalista snowballed, get her ahead. Because whilst Kalista doesn't have this massive pitfall in the late game anymore with the new items, she still thrives in the early game and still wants to get in the lead.
Yeah, she certainly does. But as we tick down spectator delay, let's remind everyone of the stakes going on in this game. Both these teams won their first matchup 2-1 400x yesterday over AoE. Solid 2-0 for Maryville over Glaive. So one of these teams is looking to wrap up their berth into the playoffs of the last tier 2. The other one will have to fight for their life tomorrow. And tomorrow, or excuse me, not tomorrow, Monday. And on Monday, Maryville's got to go up against AoE, an AoE roster that has been highly touted throughout the community, that has not had maybe the best Risen tournament, but we all know what they can do, particularly with that jungle mid duo of RBM and Darkwing. So Maryville really needs to step up here, Rude, or they could be looking at a very tough entry into the playoffs out of this Group D.
Exactly, and to touch on that group as well, we are on there's another stream, Glaive Esports, right now. If you want to go find out how the other group is, how the other teams in this group are going on, go check those guys out. Glaive took game number 1, which is something that I don't think that many again would have anticipated. AoE, as you mentioned, with that mid jungle, sort of touted as potentially one of the better teams coming in through Proving Grounds, and the fact that they're going down not only to Maryville and to AoE, it kind of goes to show that maybe there's a chance here that they're not quite what they were built up to be, and it is actually Maryville that have to play AoE next, rather, on Monday next week. So 100 Thieves being able to secure that win yesterday obviously was a not too much of a surprise, but either way, right, this game right here goes to not only decide who gets that first seed, and most likely the first seed out of the group, but also has that sort of 50-50 matchup, because now if it's Maryville that are able to, or if it's Maryville rather, that go and lose this game right here, then they've already played up their game against Glaive, and it really comes down to, do we have to, we should be able to beat AoE, right? The expectation is that they'll be beating AoE, but if it's Maryville that somehow managed to turn this fight back around, turn this series back into their favor, 100 Thieves have themselves on Monday next week that all-important game to get them out of groups, something that has been sort of a real challenge, but something that they're definitely looking to get a hold of and start challenging for, and maybe prove themselves as a Proving Grounds team more than just the basis of staying in groups.
Yeah, I think it absolutely would. It would be their first time qualifying for playoffs here in the tier 2s. And what better sign of progression than to qualify for the last one as you go into the Proving Grounds qualifiers and Proving Grounds itself? It just shows that you are making progress in the right direction, that your team understands the meta, is gelling together, and that's a great sign to have. So a lot here at stake in game 2 and for the rest of this group stage for 100X, as they looked great in game number 1. They just got to wrap it up now. They can do it in a game here in the series and then again on Monday. But we are finally through the champ select. We'll see how long the load in does take, but we'll be getting into game fairly shortly. I'm just going to ask you for a bit of a prediction here, Rude. Looking at the comps, looking at the teams, how do you think this one's going to play out at the end of the game?
How I think it's going to play out and how I want it to play out may well be two different things. I think what I want to happen is to see a pentakill, essentially, or just a massive team fight from 100 Thieves that absolutely dominates Maryville. And that's not me being biased, that's just me being entertained by pretty colours. And, you know, one team that's got their massive wombo combo ultis going and be able to really find the fight via that method. And that'd be something that'd be very entertaining regardless. But what I think is going to happen is far different. We have got to change over, actually, so that everybody can see the game, which is obviously the very important part. And hopefully a quick unpause here if we're all synced up at 5 seconds.
I am synced up in 5 seconds.
Beautiful. Then if we go 3, 2, 1 on pause, should be good to go. And you know, I don't want to say what I think is going to happen, simply because it could be absolutely anything. What I hope we see is some bot lane supremacy come through from Maryville early on. My fear of Kalista is always that she never gets off to the races, and I hope that Maryville are able to, you know, address my fears most importantly, of course, because that's what's most important tonight, and make sure that they can get Azog off to the races, get him going early on, and hopefully find some kills in the early stages.
To fear seeing Callistas not get off to the races, mostly because I love it when Callistas get off to the races. Dude, oh, it's so entertaining to watch them hopping all over the enemy team composition, and I love to see players like Azog on the champion. We know they can pilot it at the highest level and just exert their dominance over the early stages of the game. You see the teams coming out into a bit of a line of scrimmage. Believe we have a base here from Shady. Dropped the ward already and now is coming back with that sweeper. And again, it's the defensive vision coming out from Maryville as they put that ward right into that tri-path area on the top side.
So this time, both, again, teams operating... Well, actually, this time, both teams operating with no information around where those later junglers are going to be starting. And actually seeing a bit of a adverse start from Chad Jungle. Starting on his Raptors here. He's going to get the smallish leash from the Yasuo there. And now level 1 down in the bot lane.
Okay, already going to land the taunt. Not enough follow-up there, but a nice trade early on from Busio and Instinct will give them a bit of an HP lead up over Shady, but should just be able to, that one slowly climb back up. He does chug a pot. Keep your eyes on that. As he does tick that HP back up. Every bit of HP going to be critical in this bottom lane early on, considering how quickly it can go in your favor, particularly when you are piloting that Kalista Leona. Instinct and Busio going to need this to play this lane intelligently like they did last game. We'll see if and when Busio can get himself unlocked to go roam around the map on this Galio.
Speaking of around the map, we got a little glimpse there into the mid lane, and given that we've got a Yasuo in the game, I think it's only right that we pay a little bit of time to give a little bit of context on what we're seeing from Young in the early stages. We got a little bit of a glimpse at his runes. He's got Resolve and Bone Plating coming through to try and survive the Renekton in the early stages. Has also gone for the Fleet Footwork as well, so we've got runes in abundance to try and keep him safe in the early stages. Also went for the Doran's shield as well, as opposed to that Doran's blade for the 1v1. So you can see that there's a big pressure for Young to keep himself alive, and if he can make it through to the mid game, make it through to those team fight stages on parity with Spyrax, then Young has done his job. The onus is on Maryville to find their lead in the early stages, because otherwise the team fights are just going to be all too easy for Maryville to take away the lead with.
Yeah, press those R buttons in sync and watch your enemies disappear in front of your eyes. That's the goal for 100x. Spyrax is all up in the face of Young at the moment. But most of this, again, is just covering the full clears happening from the junglers, which is good news to the Odd Orange in particular. Both these junglers can kind of struggle pre-level 6, but definitely want that Requiem available for Karthus before things start getting froggy for Maryville. All quiet is a good sign, I would say, for them so far.
Exactly. We talked about it, you know, come level 6. It's a bit of a yikes if Maryville aren't ahead, and now they're looking for that lead.
Oh man, Spyrax, he's gonna flash in, he's gonna pick up first blood, and just like you were talking about, Rude, it's all about the early plays, and Spyrax has outplayed Young here on the Renekton. Despite
his best efforts here, Young goes down. It's a beautiful capitalization from Spyrax. The Wall of Pain as well from Odd Orange does just enough to keep the Yasuo locked up in time, allows Spyrax to find that flash to follow, takes down the Yasuo for first blood, and now the snowball can begin for Maryville. They get themselves Iron Spike Whip in the mid lane versus a Dagger in the mid lane. Young is far behind in this matchup. He was already at a disadvantage via the champion matchup, and now he's got a lot of trouble ahead of him. If Spyrax is able to continue forcing this. The mid lane wave is actually pushing away from Young here. This is catastrophic for the Yasuo because he needs this wave to be in sort of his half of the lane if he's at any point going to be trying to find any sort of farm.
Yep, absolutely looking rough for Young. That is not a good matchup. This is exactly why the Redacted was picked, and Spyrax is playing it to a T so far. Has a level up. Now Young hits 5. He has to run away, but will keep himself alive. And it really is. It's damage mitigation time for Young. He needs to keep himself alive, get some help, and you can see that help is here. Busio, an early roam on a back timer. He's only level 3, and Odd just sticking around. This could get ugly if 100X decide to take a fight. Spyrax gonna go in, gonna get the root down, will dash back out. That should be all there is, as both the jungler and support show their faces.
Okay, so a little bit of, you know, peekaboo whack-a-mole there in the mid lane as we see Busio poke his head out. We see Odd Orange kind of go, hey, I'm here too, and then they all kind of respectfully walk away from one another and say that this maybe isn't a fight that either one of us are particularly comfortable with taking quite so close to the 100 Thieves mid lane turret. For the time being, we're still just seeing this slow early game begin to play out, with Spyrax having this nice lead in the mid lane. It's not everything that Maryville would have wanted, right? We were looking at the the bot lane, excuse me, as well, to maybe have a lead right here. And the fact that Busio was also able to spend some time roaming up to this mid lane sort of goes to show that potentially the Kalista might have wanted to be a little bit further ahead than just 5 CS as for right now. But lovely stuff here from Chad Jungle. 100 Thieves really recognizing what their problems were. The second the wave looks like it's going to be rough for Young, they just quite easily pull in Chad and just say, hey, I'm going to help you unfreeze this. You should be fine.
Yep, now a lot of members hovering around this Drake. Both TPs available. But maybe not going to be interested in that. Chippy's instead interested in going all in as he uses the ulti, forces Gamsu away. That will bring out the base. And that slight amount of time and control of the river scuttle will allow this early Drake to go over to Maryville. So far, so good, as the plan for early game dominance is coming true for Maryville University.
The Zenith Blade goes in.
Yeah, getting knocked up here. A lot of damage coming down for Shady. Heal's been popped.
Oh, he's dead.
So he'll be taken down as the Requiem comes out. That one not going to clean up any kills, unfortunately, because Busio did fall, I believe, to Shady's Ignite. That is a bit sad for a champion that's running Dark Harvest and probably really wanted that stack, but nevertheless, this bottom lane now is firing up for Maryville as the Kalista Leona come up with a 2v2 kill.
Kalista so much backloaded damage that Busio didn't think that he needed to flash. Obviously, the Requiem was going to take him down in the back end, and that's why we see the respect paid by not burning that summoner spell. But the Pierce connects, the Rend obviously coming back through, gives about triple damage instances within the space of about a second, and makes the Galio take a massive chunk of damage that, unfortunately, it feels like Odd Orange maybe not calculating for. And obviously, with that Requiem going down, this does give a little bit of time for 100 Thieves to maybe find themselves a way back into this early game, because they can take some fights now without the pressure, the ever-present Requiem being in their back pocket. It's sort of the Evelyn effect, except, you know, a lot more deadly and a lot more reliable here, because as soon as you, if you're paying the respect of, you know, Karthus has ulti, you can never really go for any fights. And we're seeing the power of zoning and wave control as well, because Maryville have got control of top lane, now control of mid lane, and, you know, Azog pushing down on the bot side, but Shady's here in the mid lane.
Yep, both supports hanging around as there's just 180 carry. It's actually Instinct moving up to mid as well. He's going to give up a lot of pressure and potentially at least half a wave. I think he might give up the whole wave on this bottom side as they are prioritizing the Rift Herald. Azog's going to get a lot out of this, and I know you can operate on a bit of a low economy as a poke Varus, but this seems to be quite an investment, Rudude.
And without having the tier as well just yet, Instinct's not going to be stacking that one up. I wonder if he ends up picking it up at all right here, especially from game number 1, where we saw an Ezreal pick up a Muramana pretty much off the gate, you know, as soon as possible. So it's definitely a bit of a detraction from what we're used to seeing in terms of Varus builds, but in a game quite like this, they need as much power as soon as possible here, because we already talked about the presence that Maryville are going to have in the early stages. 2,000 gold to the good, and with just 2 kills, that is coming from not only the kills coming, but also the laning prowess as well. The plates that they've been collecting as Shady dives on in.
Oh, Oh, Shady kind of predicted the path there of Busio, but unfortunately not quite enough follow-up. Yamsu, meanwhile, taking a lot of damage, but out comes the counter-engage. Glacial Prison will not be enough. Chad Jungle can't get his ulti down. Chippies will stay alive. 100x trying to fight back, but thus far they haven't been able to find it, and now the bottom lane may be in trouble. Odd Orange is here. First skill going to land. How is your footwork, Instinct? Does get not rooted up, but he has the cleanse for the Leona, and he will stay alive at the cost of the bottom side jungle for 100x.
Yeah, Odd Orange here, pillaging the jungle, takes away the Krugs as well, so going to be finding himself a little bit of a lead. It's not without us seeing Chad move in on the top side and likely going to take away the Raptors up there as well. Spyrax goes on in, but recognizes there's a Diana there. Don't want to take that fight in the 1v2. I'm not quite that strong, so pays the, again, necessary respect. Moves back into the mid lane and is going to continue to look to force an advantage over this Yasuo. Young now has TP, so might have to burn that one to get back into the mid lane to make sure that this snowball doesn't compound into a really big disadvantage here on the 100 Thieves mid lane side. But that's a TP advantage now. Unless Spyrex TP's back into the mid lane, that gives a lot of opportunity for Maryville to generate a lead across the map off of this one Renekton counter pick. Remember, 100 Thieves took this Yasuo on blue 2 with absolute no regard for any counter picks that could come through. Maryville, they've taken the Renekton. They've told Young that you cannot do this without being punished. The question now becomes, do Maryville have enough juice in the early game? Have they built themselves up enough of a lead for 100 Thieves to not have a response? Or 100 Thieves just going to be able to weather this early game storm for long enough for their teamfight composition to truly come online?
Yeah, it's a 2k gold lead at the moment, Rude Dude. Gotta say that's pretty solid for 11 minutes, but there is always that looming threat of the teamfight composition as the Chains of Corruption gonna go wide there from Instinct. A little unfortunate as there was a lane gank on from Chad Jungle. Shady trying to take a little bit of space. I think everything should just fizzle out here. But it is so far so good. They just need to keep their foot on the accelerator, particularly in this bottom side where they have made Instinct and Boostio's life pretty difficult so far.
And I'm going to touch on top lane itemization here. I said that I wanted to take a bit of a hands-off approach to top lane. Okay, we're good. Bot lane's not fighting. But we're actually seeing, I believe, Warmog's Rush here from Spurge. And this is something that I was hoping to see a lot more of from a lot of teams, as it does look like Maryville are going to be able to snowball this lead and compound it into now a 3k gold lead and a second dragon. So nice little lead right there. But Warmogs did receive a nice buff a few patches ago where the maximum health sort of threshold was sort of cut down into pretty much every champion that builds a Warmogs is going to reach the threshold. Sejuani in particular was one of the champions that used to build Warmogs way back when Sejuani was meta anyway. But it sort of opens up Spurge to find himself a nice little trade early on. This actually could be Anathema's Chains. I might be entirely wrong.
It could be.
I've just thought.
Depending on what they want to go for.
Versus Viego as well.
Dude. Yeah, it would definitely make it harder for him to get a reset. The question there, it could honestly be against Karthus, right? He's the only AP damage on the enemy composition.
And I would love to see that. I've touched on Anathemas a few times on how strong it can be when there's one AP threat, particularly, you know, if you get a 30% exhaust against one champion, that's pretty darn strong, and it means that he doesn't have to build MR pretty much at any point during the game because he's got that permanently up against Odd Orange. And, you know, I don't know if we'll get it on him straight away. You obviously can rebind it, so Chippies, nice little dodge. But you can rebind Anathemas, so maybe for the time being, puts it onto Chippies to make it a little bit easier in the early stages. But come later on in the state game, would like to see it maybe go on to Odd Orange in that case. And at the minute, it's all pure conjecture because we don't know what the item's going to be.
Yep, we don't know what it is going to be yet. We do know that Chippies has some nice footwork in the top lane to dodge out on that Glacial Prison. Now there's a play coming in. They're just going to sell out for this turret. They are definitely going to get punished here, Ryu Dude. And it looks like it is Chad Jungle who will sacrifice himself for the cause. Question was, and I didn't quite see it, who got that turret down first? I think it was Maryville.
You know, I didn't quite catch it either, but if it was Maryville, they find themselves with a big lead, and even more so in the bot lane. Flash burned, okay. Or cleanse burned, never mind.
Yeah, that bottom lane has taken every single plate now on that turret, as it did fall before the 14-minute mark, and it is a 30 CS lead as well for Azog. So if you wanted to run a clinic on how to get your bottom lane ahead, this is the one, Rear Dude. This Callista is pretty bonkers massive right now, completing the Immortal Shield Bow already with the completed boots as well, working towards the second item. That is accelerated if I've ever seen it at 14 and a half.
Oh, for sure here, DJ. They're going to be looking to keep this Callista ahead of the curve as best as possible. 4k gold lead now for Maryville, doing their utmost to try and keep that lead as best as possible. And it is actually Anathemas for Spurge, so very well done to sort of recognise that one. I see you, Switchbox, in the chat. We have got as well the Balmy Cinder coming through, so this could quite easily be, you know, either the Turbo Chem Tank coming through, the Glacial Fist, the Frozen Gauntlet, whatever it is these days, but also the Aegis could be coming through as well to potentially suggest get that more, we'll say, Bruiser-esque item in the Sunfire Aegis.
Yep, Anathema's change is the decision, so glad we did figure that one out eventually with the help of Switchbox. Speaking of items, though, Rue Dude, this is not a level playing field in terms of itemization. You look over at Maryville, and they've all got their fancy, they got their fancy swords, they got their glaives,
Oh,
they got
chippies.
No, chippies don't do it to them. Oh, that's just rude. That's just so mean, Chippies. He takes the red buff and he slides away with the help of the blast code. And Chad Jungle, who was just sacrificed a moment ago, his life gets a little bit worse.
Yeah, the 3 HP red buff is something that you hate to see as a Diana, and then particularly when it goes away to a Viego, that is something that you're never too happy about. But at the end of the day, that is going to be making the bot lane a lot harder. Yes, you've got Anathemas, but does the red buff make a difference? It would appear the answer is quite handily no. Despite the fact that Maryville have got this lead, the bot lane really will be turned on the tides right here. Gamsu definitely going to have the advantage in the 1v1. And now the flash in.
Flash in, double root into the full
Team
there
fight.
are all the R buttons, Rue Dude. That's what we love to see. That's what we wanted to see. Out comes the Requiem, but everyone's a little too healthy, and all the 100X members are going to survive. The one positive for Maryville, Spyrax was nowhere near this fight. He's going to get a lot of chip damage down onto the top tier 2 turret, but that's what we've been waiting for.
And that's exactly what the 100 Thieves squad is built to do. Now, the Cloud Dragon is spawning in 5 seconds, and that's a lot of ultimates burned. Question becomes, can they get this dragon in time before Maryville reset themselves back out onto the map and try to look to contest it? Because if a fight breaks out now, Maryville, with their ults all available, might well be able to take this.
Galio ult coming in. They're trying to turn it around. Maybe the team fight is coming online, Rue Dude. Arrow going in over the top. The damage is slow, and they've taken the Drake away. Now they're burning down Shady, and they might just be turning it. Spyrax so low on the backside of the fight. He's going to go down. Azog slain one, though, and we're evening it out. Chad Jungle, he's going to fall down to the Defile, and it looks like it might not be enough. Young, the last surviving member, he doesn't quite have it in him, and it's an ace for Maryville. They turn it all around.
They don't have their ults. 100 Thieves go for the fight. They do get the Drake. They do stop Soul Point, but Maryville turn it on. They're able to take the 5v5 against a weakened 100 Thieves, and this time the fight goes handily in their favour. The complete ace, they only lose one, and now they've got Rift Herald to start sieging down turrets, start taking gold back for themselves, and ballooning this gold lead into what is now 7,000 in their favour. With all of the outer turrets gone, the inner turrets the only ones that remain, we could very well see Maryville start looking to crack those open as well.
Yeah, Maryville now with control of the entire map. They have 3 turrets to 1. Still have those 2 Drakes. I'm going to find Busio. I think there's quite the follow-up. Shady is going to walk away. This fight for Vision, and really love to see Maryville fighting for the Vision. They know what the next objective is, and that is to take control of the enemy jungle. They can use that to go to any objective they want. Critically, the Baron, which will be available in a minute, Rue Dude. So they are already doing what needs to be done to set themselves up, dot the I's, cross the T's for what the objectives they need to win this game.
Cloud Soul, of course, we talked about it, we touched on it. Not the win condition that a lot of teams look to work towards, but importantly, I want to touch on how important it is to see 100 Thieves steal away not only the sort of soul point dragon, but in particular that it is a Cloud Soul, a team that is so reliant on their ultimates. Getting that extra ability haste, the extra reduction in those cooldowns, is going to do them untold levels of benefits, because they'll be able to force those fights a little bit sooner, a little bit faster, and that sort of mitigating factor of not being able to take a fight without their ults won't become quite such a threat if your ults are up a little bit faster.
Yeah, the CDR is really nice, and I guess that was the question I had for you, Rooted, is they lost that fight very handily, but you could almost argue it's worth it if they can hold out in the coming minutes. It doesn't look like Maryville want to let them, though. They're fighting for this top tier 2. It is going to go down, but we might have a full engage. Chad Jungle going very low. Yes, ult defensively. He's already down. The fight is coming out. They've gotten on top of the odd orange, but out comes the Defile. Out comes the Requiem, and now 100X have to run for the hills. It's Gamsu falling down, and it's 3-4-1. Another fight in favor of Maryville, but this time the Baron's available. Question is, can they take it without their jungler?
They should be fine too. Callista Rend is a mighty handy smite tool in a pinch. And with that, and with as well 3 players of 100 Thieves being down, this game looking like it's going very handily into Maryville's back pocket. It's just Instinct and Busio. Neither one of them look like they're too bothered by this. Neither one of them look like they want to take this fight around the Baron. And you get to see once again that with Maryville are able to buy space in these team fights, as long as they don't clump up, they are absolutely fine. The 100 Thieves composition is very linear in how it looks to play on out. They want to find 5 members wedged in a choke point and find them all grouped up for their ultis. This time round, Chad didn't really find the engage they were looking for. Azog was absolutely fine, and it feels weird to say that the only AP source is the worst target that you could be taking down, but killing Karthus only makes him stronger. That 10-second-ish buff time where he's allowed to stay alive, allowed to do damage without any form of contest from the rest of 100 Thieves is actually what deals the most damage from Odd Orange during that fight. This is Martyrdom Karthus at its finest. Goes down, has the Defile among everybody, has the Requiem as well to try and finish off any straggling kills. And up 2-6 right here, 2 items as well on the Karthus, especially with that Void Staff. He's going to be dealing near true damage up against this squad with the Sork Boots.
And critically, it is a 10k gold lead, Rudu. You have to say it has all come together for Maryville. They are so accelerated. The items very much in their favor. Now looking to extend that lead with this Baron push. If you are 100x, when or where are you looking to fight to turn this game around? We know they have that great team fighting composition. They could snap and the enemy comp could be deleted, but they have to have the power to do so, and they have to find the right fight, Rudu.
And I think that this is going to be their go button. Here's the chain.
Yeah, go button, but it's on the Spyrax, and they just can't take him down. He's so tanky, and Young goes in, but dies instantly. Busio tries to do the same, but they're just shrugging off the damage coming through from 100x. It is nowhere near enough, and Spyrax with over half his HP is going to laugh in the face at that engage attempt as he heads back to base.
Yasuo is sat on 1 item right now. Yes, Young is a great Yasuo player, but when you're down an entire item over your mid lane counterpart, it's simply not enough to be able to find those fights, find those engages. You can even see in Spyrax's build here, just the Warden's Mail is enough to punish and enough to deter any form of fight that Maryville may not, or rather that 100 Thieves may have wanted to take right here. Going to be working his way quite nicely through the 100 Thieves squad with that dominance with the Kuldamik as well. And, you know, we talked about champions that fall off a little bit in the late game, that Callista notably, renownedly being one of them, but Varus, as a poke champion in the late game, can deal great damage if he gets those items, but at present is down a level, again down an item, and really hasn't been hitting the market in terms of those damage thresholds simply because he's a poke Varus, relies on being able to set up and find those piercing arrows before the fights come through. And when you're looking for fights, when you're having to force them yourself, you're not typically set up, you know, poking away for a large amount of time, because Maryville aren't giving them that time. They're the ones that are joining the play, they're the ones that are setting it up and dictating the pace of this game.
Very much so. I mean, it's 12k now, dude. Like 10k is bad, 12k is just like, that's insult to injury. And so much of that gold is expressed in items, right? It's not just sitting in their inventory. It is stats out on the Rift. I mean, it's 2K for top lane, it's 2K for jungle. This lead is just massive. And they're looking at a soul in 3 minutes, 30 seconds. They're looking at the next Baron in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. 100X is going to have to pick one of these objectives to fight over, but I'm getting the feeling that this is going to be their last fight here, Rue, dude.
It's do or die, right? If they win this fight, there's still a massive uphill climb for 100 Thieves. If they lose this fight, they probably lose the game. And look at the items, right? You touched on the fact that they are speaking a different story. Shout out Captain Flowers. We have to do our compulsory stopwatch check. Maryville have got 3 on their back pockets right here. They've got Karthus, Viego, and Callista. Most notably has that stopwatch, that that AD carry that they're going to be looking to seek out and take down. He's going to be able to go immune at a certain point, and that might well be enough to cause the team fights to be absolutely unwinnable.
Chippies has to dash, flash, and ult away. So far, he's managed to get away, but now they might have found him. I believe they will, but what is the cost? Chippies, my God, Chippies is staying alive for so long. They're finally going to kill him, but at what cost? Chippies goes down. Here is the tier 3 tower falling in the top lane. Inhibitor is certainly forfeit or not. They actually only lose a tower for that, Rude Dude. Despite the fact that it is a permanent structure, I honestly think that's not the worst outcome for 100X.
That's effectively 100 gold going into Chad Jungle's back pocket right there. He's going to be so grateful for that cash injection. 650 gold shut down off on top of Chippy's head. That's been taken, that's been lynched, and they're going to be quite happy that they've been able to collect that bounty for themselves. Like I said, it doesn't make the game winnable for, it doesn't make the game won for them. It means that they are still up a massive uphill battle ahead of them, but it's the first step that they had to take in the right direction. We see Chad go back, picks himself up another needlessly large rod, working towards that Rabadon's death cap. If that comes through before the final fight, there's a chance, there's a world where 100 Thieves can make that fight happen. And we always have to factor in that 1% team fight play where you find everybody, you find the absolute juice of 5 members wedged in a corner, you knock them all up, you get the 5-man perfect combo, they can't even stopwatch it at any point, and then you're able to take the team fight like that. This is by no means over for Maryville, but the overwhelming odds have it going in their favour.
And critically, the Drake going to be available in a minute. The Baron is up in 2 seconds. 1 second. Second purple worm is on the table. Spyrax just spotted 3 members in the bottom lane. They should just be on this Baron, and they are. This is likely forfeit instead. They're just straight up going to give up this Baron in the attempt to kill Spyrax and take this turret. I think they're going to do it, but Spyrax is making it very hard on them. They do manage to get him. It costs them 3/4 of a Gamsu's health bar and the Baron, but they get the kill and the turret and now need to hightail it back to base.
So Moonfall not available. Sejuani ulti also had been used for that dive. Now the question becomes, do they come up in time before they need to defend their base and before that Cloud Soul goes over? This is probably the one time where 100 Thieves are going to say, you know what? Maybe we sacrifice the soul this time round. We don't have our ults to fight. We don't have the capabilities to duel them for this Cloud Soul. And this time round, they might just have to forfeit it and, you know, say, well, it's not our time, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have to give this one up. We'll go for the Elder. Crucially, though, we do see some big item spikes come through for 100 Thieves. They've got themselves now the Infinity Edge on Yasuo. Rabadon's Death Cap comes through for Chad. Even the Mana Mune being picked up by Instinct. Hopefully that'll soon get ticked over into a Mirror Mana. 100 Thieves might have the tools to be able to come back and fight. But that's not without a massive ton of item spikes coming through from Maryville. They've got now the Zhonya's fully completed for Odd Orange. They've got the Randuin's Omen on Spyrax when in a team fight up against a Yasuo. That is going to be absolutely devastating for the side of 100 Thieves to try and cut through. Chippies has a GA that they're going to have to go through as well. And Shady as well might have been sitting on this for a while. But Abyssal Mask is mighty fine on some supports.
Yeah, Abyssal Mask, just great, right? I mean, just more damage from immobilization and Leona's entire kit's immobilization. So can't disagree with the build path coming in from Shady. Can't really disagree with the amount of items that Maryville have in general. Everybody's sitting on about 3 items. We've got defensive ones coming in. We've got the stopwatch, the GA. Chippy's now absorbing the pressure of 2. That Top lane is wide open. It's being moved in slowly by Spyrax as Maryville look to sync up the waves and look to make the final push. They do not want to let 100X stick around for an Elder play in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. This first inhibitor looks like it is forfeit. Spyrax playing it a little careful, but knows it's really difficult for them to take him down through the Sterix, through the Randuin's Omen. 1 inhibitor down, and that is a very unhealthy mid lane tier 3 turret. That won't last much longer.
But look at the spacing here. 100 Thieves are sort of trying to look for this fight. Maryville are not giving it to them. They're a distinct moonfall away from everyone, and now they're going to fight themselves.
Out comes the Solar Flare, cleanse in, and there are the R buttons coming in. A couple stopwatches pop, multiple members going low, but it's odd orange again, and now they're just in the middle of the Defile. Out comes the Requiem, down goes one Busio on his last life's breath, and this one looks like Maryville have done enough. They've won the fight again. There are 2 members dead on the side of 100X. Maryville, instead of going for the end, they will go for the 3rd inhibitor to all but guarantee this game. Spyrax dashing into 3 members, goes very, very low, but will keep himself alive. And with Azog full HP, I think this is 3 inhibs. No, it's not quite.
3 inhibs is sort of renownedly known as a bit of a death sentence for you. You know, the presence of so many minions crashing into your base generally resigns you to your own fate. The fact that that one stays alive here could be the one lifeline that 100 Thieves needed to get themselves in this game. Once again, it's still Maryville who have got themselves such a big lead here, so far ahead in this game, that they should be the victors here. We are expecting it. It is what we're anticipating from the way they were able to cleanly generate an advantage in the early game and segue that into now a Cloud Soul, segue that into a massive advantage and into the base being all but broken here down on the bot side. You know, I say broken, the base has been broken. The base is in tatters right now. They have 1 inhibitor. They have like the small baseline being threaded open. Chad taking away the Scuttle Crab on the top side, and you know we can see Chippy's here quite happy to try and move his way down into this bot side, because if they take down that 3rd inhib, that is most likely the game sealed and delivered.
Odd Orange giving him a now see here little emote there. Most of it has gone Odd Orange's way in this game, so going to be a little annoyed that the Scuttle Crab does not fall his way. Meanwhile, though, Soul Flare going to come out. There's no cleanse this time on Instinct. He has to flash away. Corrupted Chains coming out. Shady going very low, but there's the Callista ulti just going to yoink him right on out to safety as the 3rd inhibitor does go down. Now Spyrax in the middle of 4 members, but he's so very tanky. The heal is massive, just absorbing all that pressure. Hysterics will come out. Still, Maryville cannot quite close out the game. Is this the moment? The timing is not quite there, but Young will fall. Reset comes in from Chippy's. Requiem's down, but it's only 4 members of 100X. They're very, very low. And now the damage is coming down onto the turrets. Chippy's has to ult out. Spyrax going back into the middle of 4 members. 100X, this is your last stand. Can you get it done? No! Busio is gonna fall down. Maryville gonna dive under the 2nd Nexus turret, gonna clean up the kills, the turret, and the game, and we are headed to a decisive game 3, Rude.
Such smart play from Maryville from the start to the end here. They find themselves the lead in the early game. They snowball it. They balloon it open to what is a 15,000 gold lead near the end. 11 turrets to 2. Cloud Soul in their back pocket. They were able to do exactly what they needed to, exactly what 100 Thieves' composition demanded of them. Perfect cognition from Maryville to say, okay, this is where their strengths lie. This is where our strengths lie. And we will play to that to a T.
Absolutely a brilliant turnaround from Maryville University, recognizing how to take down this composition of 100 Thieves. And honestly, for me, for the first time in a while, able to body Young in the mid lane here as Spyrax. I know the matchup's really good, but still, it has been quite some time since I've seen Young struggle that much. We'll see if he and 100X can bounce back in this game 3 that will decide the series. And as you mentioned, Rude earlier, will likely decide who is the first seed coming out of this Group C. But with that, we'll be wrapping it up here for game number 2. Stick around after this short break. We'll be coming to you with that decisive game 3 between 100X and Maryville University. Welcome back. It is time for the decider here, everybody. Game number 3 between Maryville and 100X. Maryville back on the blue side, 100X back on the red side where they were for their game 1 victory. And the bands once again coming in hot and heavy. To round it out, again, I'm DJ, joined by Rudude. And Rudude, do you expect any changes here? We've seen both teams win a game fairly convincingly. We see that Aurelia taken away. What do you think are the adaptations, if any, particularly from 100X as they come off a loss this time?
Well, we already see that they ban away the Diana, and they obviously took the Diana first off, so we're going back to game number 1, where obviously we did see 100 Thieves take the game, obviously so far, 100% red side win rate, so that's maybe a little advantage to 100 Thieves, but that is by no means going to be anything that indicates who comes away with this game. The Zinzao first pick comes through, and that is very traditional. I'm, again, incredibly surprised that we're seeing enchanters just fall through at these drafts, but be that as it may, this is exactly how these teams are electing to play, so we'll have to wait and see if we see some sort of adaptation. But talking of adaptation here, DJ, they go for the Lee Sin, they go for the Senna, and that is a spicy duo right there, and again, a slight chance that this is actually the bot lane.
Yeah, there is a chance that this is the bot lane because, of course, for the very same org, we saw this played on the LCS stage. FBI actually the one to pilot the Lee Sin. So if anybody knows how to play that lane, it is probably 100X here in the amateur circuit. That Lee Sin, of course, can be flexed to a lot of different roles despite the recent nerfs. So excited to see where it ends up. And okay, the Mundo coming in here. 100X, they are giving us a lot of flavor in this draft in phase 1, Rudude.
This is, these are some new picks, right? Dr. Mundo, at least new picks in this series at the very least. Dr. Mundo we haven't seen. Senna, we've not yet had the chance to have a look at, but Dr. Mundo is another one of those top laners. I imagine Gamsu going to be looking toward that Anathema's Chains once again, dependent on who his top lane matchup is going to be. But 100 Thieves thus far, I'm just going to say it's slightly lacking damage. And that is, again, slightly is the optimal word here, because Senna can pump out DPS, Lee Sin can pump out good damage, and Dr. Mundo does a surprising amount of damage for essentially a true tank, but we're still looking towards somebody to be that hard-hitting hyper carry, and, those bruiser-style champions that 100 Thieves have locked on in at the minute might not cut it.
Yeah, maybe looking for something out of Young once again. We've seen the highs and lows here as his Yasuo was shut down in game number 2, but game number 1, he was having quite a bit of fun, and you wanted some damage, at least in the early game. I mean, heck, in the late game, if you're stacking it up, this can provide some damage. The LeBlanc coming in from Young, another champion that he can definitely flex his muscles on.
I mean, Young is just giving us, the bicep curls at pretty much every instance right here. Every single champion he's locked in is so skill expressive, and you need to be confident in your abilities to take this champion. Maryville, though, they throw down the OG gauntlet, the OG counter here, say, hey, you picked LeBlanc, we're picking Kassadin, and we're going to be looking to A, outscale you into oblivion with this pickup, but B, be able to go toe-to-toe with you from level 6.
No way. Okay, are we going to see a Yuumi here, Rudude? Oh my god.
As Yuumi, baby.
Okay, it's an Ezreal Yuumi in the bottom lane, Kassadin mid, and then Set in the top lane, Jin Zhao. This is a fast... I haven't seen a composition like this in so long, Rudude. The Kassadin counter into LeBlanc, the Yuumi in the bottom lane. This is going to scale like crazy, but honestly, how is this going to operate kind of mid to early to mid game? I haven't seen a comp look for this kind of angle in quite some time as 100X wraps it up with the Gnar.
Well,
is this
it's bot lane Lee Sin, right? It's 100%
yeah.
bot. It has to be bot lane Lee Sin, right? As we'd sort of anticipated, but
it could be bot lane Mundo.
I would hope not. I mean, there's a chance, right? We do see Senna often paired with tanks, so, the Sion, the Cho'Gath as well as Tom Kench as well in times gone by. There's a chance that that's going to be the case, But with we're assuming that this is bot lane Lee Sin. That leaves us with Mundo Jungle. And I didn't get a chance to touch on this, but Mundo Jungle actually got some buffs in this recent patch. Definitely a champion that can power clear, go toe-to-toe with the Xin Zhao in that clearing aspect. Maybe the early game duels definitely still go into Maryville's way with that wee woo in the jungle. But it's still going to be a force to be reckoned with in terms of power farming, in terms of clearing, and in terms of getting to those items incredibly quickly.
Yeah, he's definitely been buffed. We've seen him quite a bit. He's a really nice matchup into Renekton because you can remove that CC. But still, I still gotta wait and see where this goes. I think you're probably right that this is just gonna be that Lee Sin Senna lane. And if this is that lane, how does that operate? Well, obviously we saw it on the LCS stage, but what's the concept behind the Lee Sin? Why is that taken, and how is that going to function into something like Ezreal Yumi that is so hard to get on top of?
You know, it's going to function the same way that everything functions into Ezreal Yumi here. It's going to have a pretty hard job at trying to kill it, but if you can get on top and get down those, get down the slow, you may have a slight chance here. The obvious pressure point here is the fact that 100 Thieves next are going to have 2 damage dealers out of that bot lane, where Maryville are only going to have the 1, right? They're going to be able to quite happily try and take the 2 versus 2. The sort of onus here for Maryville in that bot lane duo is keeping themselves at range, and obviously against a Senna, it's not necessarily too easy if you do manage to land that W, that root coming through. It's very easy for Lee Sin to follow up with a Sonic Wave and then be able to follow through, try and get a decent chunk down. The Safeguard as well, going to be providing a lot of as it would suggest, a lot of safety. If he tries to dive on him, can quite easily get back out as well. The hard CC for Maryville down on the bot lane is non-existent. They have nothing to keep this Lee Sin in their midst whilst they're trying to dish out the damage. So I think that 100 Thieves next are going to be able to quite easily pick up those Senna stacks, pick up those souls, and get Senna to a very strong point. And we're still waiting to see whether it's Instinct or Busio that's taking this one down in the bot side. It'll be interesting to see which one of the two is the Lee Sin player. As actually we do see Chad locked in the Lee Sin, so I completely spaced on that one. Was too busy looking at the full drafts in their total. But you hit the nail on the head then, that it's potentially Mundo jungle or Mundo in the bot lane.
Yeah, it could be Mundo. Now let's not get too hasty here. They
still have swaps.
Put this on us, right? We still have swaps. This makes it like a 60-40 for me, but we still have swaps. So we'll hold on here, and maybe we can focus on some areas of the map we actually know are locked in here. And talk to me about this Kassadin LeBlanc, right? Normally when you draft a Senna, you're thinking that's the late game scaling team. I feel like Ezreal and Yumi and Kassadin outscale. Why is this a matchup that's picked into LeBlanc, someone that's typically a lane bully, someone that can dominate the early game in that mid lane?
So Kassadin's just got this magic damage shield on a 6-second cooldown, which makes LeBlanc's trade patterns a little bit more difficult to go for. Typically, it's very predictable when she's going to look for that Sigil Distortion combo, try and take you down. And with Spyrex picking this Kassadin, it's very simple to channel a Q onto a creep onto the LeBlanc if you're trying to trade back a little bit effectively, to maybe try and connect on that damage. But it's more so the fact that the Q is also instant, so if you think of Victor Q, for example, the Siphon power, that's actually Nasus, never mind, but the Siphon, the fact that you have to wait for the Victor Q to go away and then come back before you get the shield. Kassadin Q is an instantaneous effect where you collect yourself that magic damage shield. Also, LeBlanc wants to distort on top of your face, and if you're able to find your right click, if you're able to click onto the LeBlanc, you can get an auto W trade in very quickly as well. And typically, you're able to trade back fairly well up against a LeBlanc, which is a luxury that most mid lane AP champions just don't have. And then come level 6, we know that Kassadin with the Rift Walk becomes a bit of a menace. It's not to say that Young still doesn't have the advantage in the early game, because pre-level 6 we are anticipating that Young has a fairly decent time up against Spyrax. But once again, it becomes a case of, can they capitalize on this? And if they can, will they be able to snowball that lead for long enough to keep Spyrax down before he eventually takes over the game?
Right. So it sounds like the onus is going to be on 100X to make things happen in this early to mid game. The Senna will always be there, but when you are faced against the scaling presence of a Kassadin, of an Ezreal Yumi, yeah, that's a scary scaling presence to be dealing with. So 100X, they've got the onus. where are they going to be looking? Are they going to try to punish Spyrax, or should they be looking elsewhere to try to gain advantages in this early game?
I'm 100% looking at the mid lane. If they don't put Spyrex down, this casting will take over the game. We're looking at the sort of late game damage sources that are coming through from the 100 Thieves squad. They are going to have Senna, right? That's great and all. But if you're casting Riftwalk flashes on top of her, it takes her down in like 0.5 seconds flat. There's not a lot of follow-up damage coming through from the rest of 100 Thieves. Yes, they've got themselves sporadic damage coming through. LeBlanc is very good at taking down a single target, potentially in a team fight if she's left unchecked with double distortion. Chad as well, a very strong duelist in the 1v1 on the Lee Sin. They're really looking toward Gamsu to be their sort of team fight tool to let things go. But like I say, right, if they take down the Senna, that's their long range carry. That's their sort of insurance policy during the late game, and I think that they've got more than enough tools on Maryville's side to do that, because we talked about this Ezreal Yuumi as a bot lane. Want to touch on quickly how well Yuumi pairs with everybody else on Maryville's side. Yes, you've got some great laning phase with Azog, but you're also able to keep Spyrax insanely healthy in these team fights. One of the pitfalls that Casting comes into that is that his sustain necessarily isn't there. You know, typically relies on something like the old Archangels with the shield, like the Zonyas that we still have to give himself a little bit of safety. If Shady's on top of him, hey, guess what? I got plenty of heals to go round, lad. I can quite happily keep you alive and keep you topped off during these team fights to get you to find those resets, find those kills, and take down pretty much everybody on 100 Thieves.
Yeah, Yuumi, a champion that just completely warps the game with the amount of healing and shielding that comes in, particularly when you get him on a bruiser like the Odd Oranges, Jin Zhao, or Chippies is set. Even casted it in the later stage of the game. It's just a menace. So keep your eyes on 100X to try to blow up this composition, to try to pull the Maryville from game number 2 and run it over before Maryville has time to respond. We know they can do it. We saw them do it in game number 1. We saw them do it yesterday. This is a team that knows how to play the early game. But in general, I just got to say, what a series we've been treated to here today, Rudu. These teams are so flexible. They are so creative in their drafting. We've seen Callista Tarek from 100X yesterday. Today, we see Senna Mundo in the bot lane. LeBlanc Lee Sin bringing out some old school mid jungle combinations. And now Maryville are showing us that they can flex in the heavy scaling from an early game Callista composition. The amount of things that these two teams can draft and play is absolutely absurd.
It really is here, and the fact that we're getting to see the full power, the full range of the flex meta is definitely something that has kept me enticed, and I certainly hope to everybody at home that it's kept them enticed as well. We are hitting, obviously, now the game here for game number 3, so as we move on over into that one, DJ, going to ask you once again, confirm that we're at 5 seconds for me?
I am ready at 5.
We are indeed, so 3, 2, 1 on pause. And we should be good to go. Thank you once again, everybody, for coming out to show support here, community cast of the 100 Thieves versus Maryville game. And again, thanks to Maryville for giving us just a little bit of support when trying to set this one up and allow us to showcase their game, because we need to see absolutely everybody in EGL be able to showcase what these players are made of. And let's see what they get to do with game number 3, as you talked about here. Game number 1, we saw a very tight early game, don't get me wrong, but it was eventually 100 Thieves that were able to come away with that victory. Game number 2, Maryville controlled aggression, controlled approach to the game, gave them a lead early on that they were able to snowball into a soul, into a victory in very clean fashion. Game number 3 here leaves everything on the table for us to potentially see a runaway with Maryville if Spyrex gets a lead early on. Potentially the same thing for 100 Thieves if Young gets that lead. And it's been a while, but I feel like it's really nice to see these mid laners actually have a lot of onus in the game.
Yeah, they are going to have a lot of onus, and in particular early on, we should be looking at Young to have that onus. Spyrax, if he picks up some kills, the later the game goes, I mean, we all know what Cassidy's done to us in level 16, even in gold solo queue, man. It doesn't really change how that champion works in level 16 and beyond. But 100X already tried to do something about it. They are walking into the enemy jungle 3 strong. They will clear out a ward, and they will Okay, I mean, the red buff is there. Chad Jungle, that's Sonic Wave not quite going to connect. It'll cost him an extra second. I don't think that will be too costly at the end of the day, but it is a funny way to start the game as they do pressure out this bottom lane. Gamsu and Chippy's in some trading in the top side, and have seen that Chippy's in chat has asked Mr. Gamsu not to auto him too much. I don't think he's going to oblige, Rudude.
No, you know what? Something tells me here that the gentleman's agreement of the top lane was long oversold when we saw Chippy solo killing Gamsu in game number 1 on that Camille. So this is probably Gamsu's free reign to have a little bit of fun right on back up against the set. Obviously, ranged versus melee early on. We're expecting that the Gnar is able to come away with a bit of an advantage here in the 1 versus 1. But so far, Chippies has been able to, at the very least, collect enough CS to say, well, you know what, I'm having a decent enough time myself.
Yeah, so far so good for Chippies. Of course, there's plenty of sustain on this Gnar. Every time he does up into that mega form, we'll get some HP back. So shouldn't be feeling too bad as Gamsu, and will have a chance to exert his dominance over this lane with that ranged form. Meanwhile, bottom side, bit of a push in into Azog and Shady, and this is something you should expect pretty much regardless of the lane. If there's one thing Ezreal Yumi do not do, it is wave clear and push, Rudude, and they will likely be stuck there for quite some time. Maryville has to deal with the after effects of that across the map. You can see they're trying to make something happen in the top side, both junglers hanging out there.
Yeah, they're sort of leaving mid lane to its own devices right now. Instinct actually roams on up, and they might be trying to force Spyrax off this wave right here. If they can do this, it's actually a really big lead for 100 Thieves' mid lane. You know, it might only have been a couple of minions. It's going to delay level 4 coming through, going to delay Spyrax even more in his pursuit to level 16. After all, every creep matters when you're on that journey.
Yeah, I mean, how clever is that, right? Normally we see a support roaming up, but this isn't the farming, right? This isn't the farming center. This is a fasting center. So Busio stays with the wave, and Instinct just does the support's job, roams up, and earns a little bit of an advantage. These are the kind of things you need to do to keep casted down to get your mid laner ahead. It's really intelligent stuff. Once again, understanding the timings in that bottom wave, and it's stuff that we love to see from these players on 100x that are still very young, that are still trying to improve and show everyone what they can do. We see it so often. We've seen it from other orgs, right? FlyQuest Academy, now FlyQuest LCS, showing everyone what they can do. It's the same concept here at 100x, looking to exert that intelligence into an early game lead once again. So far, it is still deathless. Everyone's still hanging around, farming up. We'll see who can find that first big play around any sort of fight or objective. First Drake is up in 30 seconds.
Now what I want to do here is take a little bit of a CC check, particularly with new Dr. Mundo. You have to think about how many ways are we going to be able to break that canister, how many ways are we going to be able to put this Mundo in the dirt. And unfortunately, the answers that Maryville have got are very limited. They are relying exclusively, they're relying almost exclusively on the set to be that CC bot to keep Busio out of the backline, or they've got the Lost Chapter to be able to make something happen, or the knock up from Xin Zhao. Outside of that, they're very limited for their CC tools. So if Busio's able to find some sort of a lead, if he's able to go sort of even, or even able to collect, whatever it may be that he needs, running rampant in a team fight is something that this Dr. Mundo will be able to do regardless of the state of the game, because there's not a lot of CC to keep him down, not a lot of CC to catch him out. And if he's able to pick up those canisters, and if as well as that, you're using your CC on the Dr. Mundo, that means that you've got the likes of, the Lee Sin, the Gnar, the Senna, the LeBlanc, everybody else, quite literally, on the 100 Thieves side, that are moving freely in the team fight, and that's certainly not something that the Maryville squad are going to be looking happy to foot towards.
Yep, not going to be happy about that first Drake going down either, but not sure there's a whole lot they could have done about it here, Rude. This is the price of the draft that you have selected. Those Drakes are certainly forfeit, and I like that 100x was straight onto it, knowing that it was incredibly difficult for them to lose the fight in any way. Level 6s do tick here for the mid laners. So Spyrax TP back, so he will have access to that Rift Walk. Now that is a big first point for this Kassadin. He can now have access to A little bit of mobility, can try to clean up kills. Of course, still costs a ton of mana at this point in the game. So maybe not going to explode just yet. But meanwhile, Odd Orange, he's in a bad spot here. Mid laners are chasing Young, going to go in. He's half HP, but there are extra members here for 100x, and they will pick up first blood. Chad Jungle will try and add a little bit extra. He's only level 5, though, doesn't quite have the Dragon's Rage kick, and Spyrax will just walk away. First blood, though, that's a critical pickup for 100x, and it's onto the enemy jungler, which will just give Chad Jungle even more tempo.
And I was just going to credit Maryville for the way that they've been able to mitigate the early game storm. Looking at this squad, right, we established it early on. We needed to see this Kassadin be put down. We need to see this LeBlanc get a bit of a snowball, get a bit of a lead here. Spyrax now forced the flash away in the mid lane. 100 Thieves finally here, starting to kick off and get themselves those leads. Odd Orange falling, Spyrax jumping in, and Young is absolutely fine here, but the force, once again, the push in of the wave to break this freeze is exactly what Spyrax needs, but we do see Chad Jungle lurking.
Now level 6. Okay, Young now going to go in. This is a bit of a disparate effort from Chad Jungle and Young. They've actually taken a ton of damage trying to fight off this push, but it looks like they have managed to keep the wave from fully going under the turret. Meanwhile, bottom lane might have it all in. Exhaust coming out. Here comes the mist. It's not quite enough. Again, Yuumi and Ezreal incredibly slippery, but they do get exhaust heal and the barrier out of this bottom lane. Nicely done by 100x as they continue to gain incremental advantages. It's a 600 gold lead as Young TP's back into the mid lane. Next Drake going to be available in 2 minutes.
And obviously, with Yuumi not needing the flash, it is a positive summoner trade for 100 Thieves. And as you mentioned there, if those timers aren't up, ready in waiting for that fight around the dragon, you can very well imagine Maryville once again seeding that dragon, because it's not the biggest deal to give over 2. It's very frequent that we see teams go, we can go 2 Drakes down. It's when we lose soul point, when we lose soul, that we begin to be a little bit depressed about the way that we've let the dragon stack away. So if they're able to give up 2 but find objectives elsewhere, find leads elsewhere, that's certainly going to be a route into the game for Maryville. Of course, for now, their game plan is still make sure that you are not giving up advantages. Make sure that you are categorically, not giving the kills to the LeBlanc, not giving kills over to the rest of the squad from 100 Thieves, because if they're getting it, they're going to be looking to snowball. And I want to, again, go back to giving credit to Maryville, because yes, they lost 1 kill, but we look at the gold lead, it's 5-600. That's not a game over marker by any point. We look at Maryville, when they had the same onus of execution on them in the last game, they were looking at about a 2k gold lead at this point. So there is a very real possibility here that Maryville have done the hard work already, and now they're just sort of sitting back at this point, waiting and thinking, we just have to let our Kassadin reach level 16, because at present, 100 Thieves next don't have the tools to win this game with the leads that they've tried to amount.
Yeah, it's still not big enough, right? We said the onus is on them, and 700 gold is never going to be enough to turn heads at this point in the game. We are still pre-10 minutes, and they do have a Rift Herald in Chad Jungle's inventory, so there is potential to try to make a game-breaking sort of play, but it has not occurred yet, and it will need to at some point. Spyrax is still very much in this. He's only 10 CS down. He's feeling just fine, deathless thus far. And that is the big target you have to keep your eyes on as this game progresses. Tier stacking up, and 100x will have to make their play. Drake is available, so is the Rift Herald. It looks like this one's getting started by Chad Jungle, going for that perfect objective score thus far. I don't think, like we mentioned, this can be contested. Orange just hanging around, but he does show up late. Doesn't really have anything else to do with no camps up, but second Drake there, and a Mountain Soul will be the one on the table. So at the very least, 100x get a nice boon from the RNG, Rudude.
Yeah, they get themselves no Cloud Souls in this third game, which is certainly something they'll be quite happy about. That is for certain, particularly with a Dr. Mundo on their side. The extra bonus resistance is going to be doing doubled work for Busio, because he's going to be building pretty much exclusively those defensive stats, getting those increased by the percentage that the dragons give you, exactly what the 100 Thieves support player is going to be looking for. Now, of course, the question remains, are they in a position to start to take those dragons in a bit of a later stage? We can see Spyrax looking for the all-in mid lane.
He coming out here, Dawning Shadow. They might have baited him in. He's rooted up. Spyrax gonna go down, and 100X have the answer to the mid lane. Cassidy Young looked like he was in trouble, but he knew his teammates were there to support him, and now the Rift Herald will be dropped onto the mid lane tier 1. This might net them. Okay, probably not going to net them the full turret. That charge a little too early. They hadn't taken enough plates down, but that is a critical play for 100X. This is the kind of play they needed to make onto this Cassidy to set him behind.
And like bees from the hive, 100 Thieves come out in support of the Queen LeBlanc in the mid lane. Spyrax dashes in aggressively. Young thinks he might be in a little bit of danger. We see Dawning Shadow come down from one side. Lee Sin erupts from the bottom side of the river, and that is going to be a lovely little collapse into the mid lane. Once again, punishing Spyrax here for getting just a little too overzealous. The first time we've actually seen it this game, goes a little bit too far, oversteps his bounds, but gets punished appropriately by the 100 Thieves squad. And that's the second kill of this game right now. Lead, again, beginning to grow. It's by no means insurmountable just yet by Maryville, but Odd Orange going in could get caught as well. Nice Crescent Guard does just keep him safe, though, so able to, again, keep himself out of harm's way, but does burn the ulti.
Ulti's now down. Young continuing to exert some pressure there, forcing that spell out, and now there's no way they can contest around any objectives. Fortunately for them, next Drake is up in 2 minutes 40 seconds, so plenty of time to reset and respawn to that kind of play, as we do hit a bit of a lull here, Rude. Where, if you are 100X, are you looking to exert yourselves now, right? You've got this mid lane turret low, but there's nothing for you to fight around. They still need to come up with some of these aggressive plays in the early game. They still need to look to put Spyrax down. So what do you want to see from them before this Drake spawns to try to take advantage of their early game power?
I mean, the bad news is the early game's pretty much over. Turret plates are falling. Yes, we've still got these generic lane assignments, but with all intents and purposes, the sort of onus of finding early kills onto Cassidy doesn't exist anymore. We've reached 14 minutes. We didn't get to see much of a swap up for the Rift Herald. We haven't seen the mid laners go down to the side lane. First Herald was used in the mid lane to get some plates in the favour of Young. So there's not really been a break open in the turrets anywhere across the map. Swaps haven't come through. We're just seeing everybody quite happy to sit and farm up. And for Maryville, that's exactly what they want. If we take a quick look at the gold player by player, you know, the leads are slight in a couple of places, right? There's a slight lead for Busio over Azog. There's a slight lead for Young over Spyrax, but there's nothing particularly concrete across any of the members to suggest that they have enough damage, enough of a lead in general to put themselves in a decent position around these dragons. And with Spyrax just inches away from level 11 now, that second part of Rift Walk, he's going to be so strong coming into these fights by nature of that ultimate being on about a 3.5 second cooldown. Might not have the items just yet, but he's still in a very good spot.
He's rooted up. He's going to get rooted up again. He has to flash away. There's a lot of members here. Yuumi comes to save him. He's likely going to lose his mid lane turret. Young should be just fine as he slinks away. He's got TP for this Drake in 35 seconds. And there's no mythic item. There's no completed item on Spyrax. I got to be honest here, Rooted. I don't know if they can contest, but they probably need to. Can you really give up soul point to 100X?
I think they can, you know, and they're banking on the fact that they can right here because they've got Cassidy. They're going to be looking to propel into the late game, but just a little bit later here. It is a bit of a gamble if they go for it, but it's one that I wouldn't mind in this case because they know they have that late game insurance policy. Still not certain just yet. Obviously, Young going to be spotting out Odd Orange on a ward right here, and the rest of 100 Thieves could well look to collapse onto this one. Drake spawning right now. This is where the fight would begin to happen with both top laners with their teleport. Who's going to be the first one to bite the bullet and start up that dragon?
Gamsu teleports into the mid lane just to get near his team. It is a full 5v5 slog for this Drake. Young going in initially, gets the poke down. Oddworms charges in, but Gamsu just jumps on away. And Azog, he's already half HP. This is not where you want to be. Young is doing so much work here with the poke. So many members, half HP. Even with the Yumi, it hasn't been enough. They're still looking for the steal.
Shady's
Young
almost doomed.
wants this flank. Everyone wheeling around. Here comes a flash, and they can't get it. Soul point in for 100x. Now the fight is breaking out. Keep your eyes on Spyrex. If he can pick up any kills, it's huge, but he's not doing anything. He's just stuck in the back of the fight. He doesn't have any damage. 100x are cleaning him up, and Azog's going to fall in the back of the fight as well. Everything comes up for the Thieves as they steal the Drake away. They're set up for the Soul in 4 minutes, and they win the fight, convincingly not losing a single member.
Heist complete for 100 Thieves this time round. This was the mini rework before the big heist that they've got later on in the game right here. They got themselves enough of an advantage through those first 15 minutes to break their way into an advantageous fight down around this bot side. Dragon goes in their favor, 3 kills go in their favor, and now they could very well be setting up to try and propel this game even further. We have to remember that we're only 17 minutes into the game here. We're by no means at that late game stage. We are still at that sort of mid-game interlude where the game can be tipped on its head very quickly, but getting yourself up to a 4k gold lead is exactly what 100 Thieves would have looked to do. Second Herald is up on the board. They can maybe look toward that as a potential objective, but right now their goal is going to be keep this lead, keep the pressure on, and try and force Maryville into a really rough spot because Chippies is getting neutralized up here.
Okay, yeah, Chippy's gonna
never
trade
mind.
back very nicely. Seth's got a lot of passive healing in that kit, but Young, he wants this. There's no MR on Chippy's. One more chain would actually do it, but he does have the footwork to get out. And you talked about this Rift Herald. Well, 100x, they aren't letting any objectives go over to this Maryville comp. They just send their members up here. They brute force this one down because why not, right? If you've got the power, which they have had, just take that away from them. Don't give them anything. If there's at least one thing they have done super well with this early game advantage, Rudude, it has been objective play. They have given Maryville absolutely nothing, and they have taken the Drakes right on spawn. So this Soul Drake will be spawning well before Maryville probably feels comfortable to fight for it.
And we're seeing the exact same issues that we saw 100 Thieves have in the last game. They picked this Kassadin and they thought that this would be absolutely fine, but the early game pressure from Young, from the rest of the 100 Thieves squad has been just enough to keep this Kassadin down. Now finally going back to get that Mythic, Spyrax should be okay with enough Rift Walks and turret may go down, but Chippies is TP'd here as well.
Okay, Gamsu, ulti comes out, Spyrax half HP. I think Gamsu might just be fine here. Chippy still has ult, but he's just going to walk away.
The top
and
lane.
That's 2 members in the bottom side with Rift Herald in the top lane. 2 turrets lost. A root even going to fall here onto Oddworms. It's going to get the Yumi ulti out. Kick comes through for Chad Jungle just to make sure he is safe. But that is so much gained for the likes of 100x. They even got Gamsu cleaning up the blue buff so that doesn't get stolen away.
Wow. And if Chippies doesn't get this turret down on the bot side, this is just a massive win for 100 Thieves. Gamsu may well look to try and take the fight after the fact. So no Mega Narum with that Boomerang Blade going wide. That is probably going to be it in terms of the engage. But remember, this bot lane tier 1 is incredibly low as well. Gamsu should be able to try and push forward and take this one down. We do see that the odd orange is on this bottom side though, so potentially looking to try and bait on in Gamsu here as he looks for this turret, but buys his respect, recognizes his team out on the map, and that if he can't step up to that turret, he shouldn't do so, and definitely takes the reset at the appropriate time. 100 Thieves doing exactly what they're supposed to do at this point. Their gold 6,000 to the good. It's been growing and growing here, DJ, and with the dragon spawning in 1 minute and 10 seconds, you can see that their attention is looking toward that top side. They want the Baron before they even need to go for it.
And I was about to ask you about the Drake here, Rudude. Can Maryville fight this? Look at their items. Is this enough to go up against this 100x composition? Look at all the pen on this LeBlanc. Look at the items for them. I don't know if they can do it. They don't know this is happening. This might just fall down. Here comes the Ezreal ulti. It's going to spot it out far too late in 100x. They are just ahead of the curve. They're ahead of the game. It's 1,000 IQ play, and they've got plenty of time to head back to the Drake.
Your question was, can they stop this? The answer simply no. What it should have been is, do they even know it's going on? 100 Thieves sneak this one away. Started up about 15 seconds before or after Baron has even spawned. And I was thinking that 100 Thieves were going to go for a bit of a trade play where they know that where Maryville are going to need to move toward this dragon to try and steal away the soul, and maybe they take the Baron in that window. They can get both here. They've still got their lead. They've still got a lot of onus, a lot of gold in their back pockets to try and spend, but they've got such a lead already that this fight should be theirs as well. This 5v5, the poke starting to come through from Busio, from Young.
Oh, Young. Okay, the Yuumi ulti out here. Chippy's on the backside looking for an angle. Instinct in a little bit of trouble. He flashes away from Chippy's. Senna's still healthy. Spyrax, he's so low, and Spyrax is down. It's all to the odd orange, but they're already down. Shade, he's got no one to jump on in 100x. It's an absolute clinic here, Rude Dude. 5-0, a clean ace, Dragon Soul, and a Baron. And if you want to talk about early game execution against the scaling composition, this is your footage.
This is a beautiful game from 100 Thieves. They've got themselves a 22-minute soul, ladies and gentlemen. They ramped up this game so incredibly quickly. Now, with Baron at their backs, with Mountain Soul at their backs, they haven't even taken the reset. We toggled the gold here real quick. 1,500 gold across pretty much every single member whilst they're taking down these objectives. Now they're going to go back. Now they're going to spend their unspent gold. And now is when we are seeing that 12,000, 11,000 gold lead truly in full force. They've got themselves all the buffs in the world to look to close out this game. The base is already broken with mid lane inhibitor down. They have 1-3-1 potential with the 2-item Gnar, with 2.5 items on the LeBlanc. This Kassadin simply cannot stand up to it just yet. And if they're able to split this 1-3-1 appropriately, use Azog, or rather use Instinct as a bit of a poke in the mid lane, they can very easily secure themselves this game and the base subsequently, sort of within the next couple of minutes.
Rude, they are marching down mid lane here, yet to have a death. 100x in this game. Just the one turret is the difference between a perfect game and not thus far. We were so worried about some of the pace of play in the early game. We thought it wasn't enough, but 100x have proved to be in control this entire time, managing this game so very well, and now they are just bullying their way into the enemy base. This inhibitor is down. Young is just chunking out Azog. He's going back in looking for the kill. It's only the Yuumi that keeps him alive, and the members of Maryville, they are just pinging the timer for Elder. That's their only hope now. That's what they're looking for. That's still 4 minutes away, Rude.
I don't think they're going to last 4 minutes here, DJ. You can see that Young is styling in the base, just trying to throw spell after spell. They had Gamsu pushing down in the bot lane. This is going to be the second inhibitor to be felled here by the 100 Thieves squad. I remember from game number 2, if you lose all 3, typically that's you resigning yourself to death. They've still got a top lane inhibitor standing, but before all too long, I must imagine that 100 Thieves are going to look to work their way over there. But, DJ, it's worth noting, they're 12,000 gold to the good here in terms of gold spent. If they want to take a fight underneath 2 Nexus turrets, I don't think that they can't.
Talk about a reversal of fortunes from game number 2 when Maryville had the 12k gold lead. Now it is 100x. They march right onto the top tier 3. The wave is perfectly managed, Rude Dude. It shows up right when they want it. They take it down. They take the inhib for free. And now it is basically doomed for Maryville. Even if they hold against the Nexus, they are up against triple inhib. Odd Orange going to go in for the last stand. Already popping the Crescent Guard, but he is so very low. Kick and land onto 3. Spyrax has no HP remaining. Azog is down. Clean him up, 100x. You are moving on with a win here today against Maryville. It's a triple kill. It's a quadra kill for Gamsu. Can they give him the penta? I don't think they can. Spyrax hanging out inside the fountain, but Gamsu will clean up with the quad.
Hey.
Okay, wait. Is he actually going to do it? He's going to give it to him. Good guy. Spyrax going to give Gamsu the pentakill here on Gnar as 100X move themselves to 2-1 and likely move on to the playoffs of EGL.
Welcome back to League of Legends, Gamsu. Have a pentakill on Maryville. Spyrax, the good guy there, gives it up here. The perfect game comes through from 100 Thieves. They lost one bot lane turret. Outside of that, they didn't lose a single player. They didn't lose anything else across the rest of the game. The objective game was flawless, and they decidedly deserved this game number 3 victory. A valiant effort from Maryville throughout this series. Game number 1 was level for the first 15 to 20 minutes. Game number 2, they stomped in very similar fashion to how they've just seen themselves lose to 100 Thieves. But overall, 100 Thieves come away with the win here in the game that mattered and managed to secure themselves, as you mentioned, that first seed in the group for now, and most likely that bye into the next round, into the groups, into the playoff stages of EGL.
Almost certainly with this 2-1, they will be moving on. I actually think it's
might be impossible.
That they will be, I think there is confirmed that they will be moving on. Question likely just whether it's first seed or not, depending on what happens on Monday, as we do have an update from that other series. It was won in 2-1 fashion by AoE, who actually had to forfeit game number 1 due to a power outage issue. So props to them for coming back from that deficit. They moved themselves to 1-1 to match Maryville, and that will be the series to keep your eyes on in Group C, Rudude, on Monday. Those two teams are going to be squaring off for the last spot in behind 100X.
Yeah, and that's one heck of a game to keep your eyes on. I mean, there are so many across EGL actually that this tournament is really delivering, right? We've got this group which is showing up big. We've got Group B as well. I'm not quite sure of the full results, but I know that the first day was a lot of upsets, so we may well be seeing 2 or 4 1-1 teams coming out of the first day, which is something that is definitely incredibly exciting going into the final day of groups. So everybody, keep your eyes on EGL, keep your eyes on Twitter, find out where your teams are playing. If you can be able to, find out where they are, find out who's putting stuff on. I know that here I'm trying to put on as many games as I can, and it's just it's a case of get as much showing of this tournament as possible, because all of these players are delivering in so many instances. This series itself has been an absolute classic.
It was a classic, Rooted. Such a privilege here to be, such a privilege to be here to cast this series between 100X and Maryville. We saw so many draft adaptations, so many incredible plays, but it does end with 100X coming out on top. Any final thoughts here, Rooted, as we wrap up for the day?
No, I mean, like I say, right, I appreciate everybody for following the channel as well. We're trying to put on as much content as possible here to showcase NA Amateur, EU stuff as well all the time. If you guys want to find out, I'm most likely going to have another stream on here on Monday next week for the final day of groups. So teams, players, everybody, please reach out, get yourself this slot, because there's not enough coverage of the group stage. We would love to see absolutely every team get showcased all of their games. Unfortunately, it's just not the case. But at the end of the day, it's, exactly what we're here to be doing. And I can't thank you, DJ, enough for being on the cast with me, because you actually absolutely killed it.
I echo the sentiment, Rudude. It has been an absolute pleasure. Appreciate you having me on, and appreciate that we got this great series between these two teams. With that, I'll wrap it up for us here today. Remember, there is still another game coming up later on the Academy stream. That one will be between Supernova and Zeus Gaming over in Group D if you want to check that one out. But until next week, this is DJ and Rudude are my partner. Thank you again for having me. Appreciate you all tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed the games, and we hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful night.